Yeah, absolutely. It's a very strong knowledge game. It's not only knowledge of the game itself, but knowledge of how the logic leads you. There are many ways to go about the game. There are many ways to play, but it's very heavy on the knowledge. And the more you play, the better you get. And I think that's why some people are so very much enjoying playing.
Absolutely. So, Uncle tells us that red mail is for cowards. I don't know about that. I think I might be a coward then, but we are off.
Dang, rip Mario, he's already rocking the red. Just straight out the gate, no messing around. Red clothing.
I mean, I think he was calling us a little bit of a coward here, GrandPOOBear, but we'll let that pass. It's okay.
It's in Mario. But yeah, ooh, Fire Rod for a start. That's very good. Having a light source, you can light up certain dark rooms with it. It won't have a innate cone that the lantern will have, but you can use it on the torch to light up rooms should there be a torch in the room. And again, very good weapon. Tends to kill most enemies in the game, and can even do some substantial bosses, or substantial damage to some bosses, pardon me.
Yeah, the real trick with the Fire Rod, though, is you really only have 8 shots with the full magic meter. Now, both of these runners are going to want to try to kill some extra enemies to farm up bombs in order to make sure you can get that bombable wall in the escape sequence. The problem is, when you only have 8 shots, you're limited in terms of what you can and can't kill. So we'll see some interesting gambles here, how much farming they're going to do for bosses, and I hope they don't run out of magic before they have to kill that last rat in the sewers before that key.
Yeah, something to note is that every enemy in the game belongs to something called a prize pack. It's basically you'll have your enemies in a type of item drop group. And in the normal game, it's very much set and even used in the speedrun. A similar thing applies to the hoarders or the bush crabs and the tree poles. In Randomizer, the prize packs are actually, well, randomized. And sometimes enemies don't necessarily drop bombs, which means you may have to come back to escape later, which is also very easy to forget too, because you go through escape and you might write it off in your mind, but it's something to always be cognizant of. So ideally, while you're going through, you're learning about the prize pack, and you're also hoping that the enemies drop bombs, but it may not always be the case.
Absolutely. As we were talking, we did pick up the bee in a bottle at that point in time. That's good for 2 things. One, a bee could absolutely be beneficial to release, for example, in the rope room, where you have all the snakes that are going around. It can kill a couple of those and get you some free kills there. Also, the bottle does allow us to go ahead and check Sick Kid when we check Kakariko relatively early. That's just an absolutely nice item location to check when you're doing that first Kakariko pass.
Yeah, a huge bee into standard mode is that open is very fun, but sometimes the different initial route can be a bit of a dice roll in terms of the items and the RNG you get. With escape, you're still spending those same initial minutes trying to collect items, but it's much more standardized. So already coming out of escape, you will have items on deck to begin to make logical routing decisions. And sometimes you don't necessarily want to go a place like Kakariko. While Kakariko has a good 13, 14 items, you might want to wait until you have more money, possibly for the ball vendor, or a bottle for the Sick Kid, or what have you. Maybe even route it in until much later, until you can just go straight to the Dark World. There are many options in terms of opening route.
Yeah, it's just, it's amazing how much heads-up knowledge you have to have, realizing if you get something on the fly, you have to change your routing or change your plan of what you had to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you can see Chauncey here doing a little bit more farming in terms of the soldiers. Usually a couple of kills are enough to let you know about the prize pack, but again, the way you advance it, sometimes you don't necessarily get a drop. So even just the farming and routing within escape itself, it's pretty interesting and dynamic between what the runners enjoy and are comfortable with.
All right, so we are going through. We are now in the sewers at about 4:27. These runners are on pace for kind of the standard 6-minute goal to get through the escape process. 6 minutes plus or minus, 5 or 10 seconds is really what you want to go for. It doesn't matter what weapon you have. Fire Rod tends to make short work of a lot of things. And we see Pooh here trying to get a couple. And Chauncey gets lucky, does get a bomb drop, Pooh does not yet have a bomb drop. That's not going to be good news if something is in the back of Escape. We'll see if he gets it. Oh, but this could be bad. Pooh is now out of magic.
Yeah, it can be a little bit difficult going through. The rats and ropes are pretty numerous, so they're a good thing to try and farm for. And it should be known that the bats don't actually give you any items, so wasting your energy on them will not reward you much anything. And yeah.
Oh, and Pooh's realizing he has no magic.
Yeah, it's a bit of an unfortunate start. That's kind of the dichotomy between, well, do I spend more time farming and escape and then make my situation more risky, or what do I do? Unfortunately, it seems like he might be a little bit confused. There are some pots in escape where you can get things like magic and whatnot, so hopefully, you know, he heads to them sooner than later, but it looks like he might be taking a death warp here to try and regroup and figure out what his options are.
Yeah, he will. I mean, he'll get some bombs, I believe, as a refill. No, some magic as a refill, not bombs. So he'll have, it looks like 2 shots at this point.
Yeah, which will definitely be enough to get him through. And the big thing about these races is that it's not that you need to do everything perfectly or always have the best plan, but it's the idea that the more you play, the more you learn. And GrandPOOBear learning that a 4 bomb drop is very nice to get right here in Escape for him, as Jay gets a Moon Pearl.
Yeah, it's a nice little Moon Pearl drop right there at the beginning. You know, a 620 escape process, it's absolutely a solid place to get that right now. Pooh won't have to kill anything except that lone rat in order to get his key. He has the magic now to do it.
Yeah, definitely. Looks like Jay is going to start doing a more typical, traditional sanctuary to Kakariko, you know, tour. You know, take a visit into the Lost Woods and you know, make her way around. But I'll quickly see what kind of tree pulls are here too. So the tree pull is also randomized, and there are 3 tiers to the tree pull as well. When you kill 1 enemy, that'll be a tier 1 pull. When you kill 4 enemies and take damage, that'll be a tier 2 pull. And when you kill 4 enemies without taking damage, that'll be a tier 3 pull. So 3 different drops. And the bush crabs also being very wealthy with their items. The crabs will give 8 drops. Between 1 to 6 and the 8th drop, they're all the same, but the 7th drop will actually be different. So between the trees and the hoarders, you can get a combination of 5 different items.
And this is absolutely amazing. Between the tree pull and the hoarders, just throwing money at these runners' faces. I mean, go ahead, stock up while you can. This is going to be good for Zora money. It's going to be good for paying off Kiki, paying your bribes across the place for the games that you're going to have to do. I don't think these runners are going to have to worry about money for the entire game.
Nope. When Jay goes to Kakariko, he'll be able to go straight to the bar, you know, can buy rounds for everyone. They're very wealthy, very early in the C tier. But GrandPOOBear making his way out. Now, even though he's a little bit behind here, don't count anything out in Rando. You know, things can change very quickly. It's you know, a small time loss for his situation, but that doesn't mean anything over the course of the entire run.
Yeah, even though the average is somewhere between 145 and 2 hours for a pretty respectable seed number, you know, little decisions at this point being only a minute or 2 behind based on what has gone on up to this point, I mean, almost nothing in the grand scheme of things. In Randomizer, it's all about the calls that you make and the routing decisions that you make. It doesn't really get into an execution battle until the very end when both runners are in go mode and things are close. And chauncyjay, with the God pull there, Sick Kid has explosive devices on him.
Yeah, he's a pretty sick kid. As Jay also finds the finger webs here, but yeah. Execution is certainly important throughout, but it's the idea where if you lose a minute in one area, you can also compensate that minute in another. So for example, a lot of people will opt to not check left side of Swamp Palace in order to save a little bit of time. So doing something like that can certainly compensate for later. A lot of times, both players are going to be checking the same areas, and so the time invested in those areas is time neutral. Both players will be checking the same things, so you're not really gaining or losing time in that effect. It's how you get to the places, how you route them in, that really determines, you know, the time difference, the way you execute it. You know, if both players go to Eastern Palace, there's no time gain or loss there, but how you performed in Eastern Palace is where the execution really comes into play, and how you got there the most efficiently.
All right, so chauncyjay is checking these other locations in Kakariko Village. Hasn't really found a whole lot, but we got... Oh, never mind. We have found a whole lot. We found both hammer and flippers.
Yeah, those are very good items to find. Typically, yeah, people go to Kakariko to get a bunch of items. There are 13 and I believe 14 when you count Sick Kid in just Kakariko, the town proper alone. So a lot of items. It can give you a very early indication of where you should probably go with the rest of the seed.
Absolutely. So with Hammer and Moon Pearl between both of these runners right now, we are just one item away, our lift upgrade. And there it is.
Yeah, that is very good. So between the items between the two players, and especially on Jay's screen right here, they will have access to the Dark World. Now, sometimes people don't like to go to the Dark World early because there are still so many items in the Light World. But the Dark World is also more dangerous. The vanilla game assumes that you will have a few more heart containers and even the Master Sword before you go to the Dark World. So while you can get to the Dark World immediately, players often will not go there just to make sure they have more safeties and even more ways to move about in the Dark World itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's at this point, it's the routing game. You know, are we going to see a route divergence between chauncyjay and GrandPOOBear? It's possible that one player could end up opting to stay in the Light World at this point, checking the South Shore area, the dam, the mini Moldorm, things of that nature. But it is worth noting, we do have access to the Dark World, so a gamble down to get Hype Cave and the Village of Outcasts could pay off if nothing else is in those areas. It's a coin toss at this point in time.
Yeah, the game can often be... Oh, there's the mirror in the racing game, so that's a very nice find too. Mirror is a huge part of routing and efficiency within the game. It not only opens up areas within the game, but if there are areas in this, you know, if there is something in the Light World and the Dark World in the same spot, that allows you to go between the two very quickly. So it really helps in routing. So that's a very strong item to find here too. And given how many items both artists have found, there is great potential for route divergence here. Usually the game is broken up into a more early, mid, and late game, with the early game typically being Dark World access. But with having these tools so early, the world is their oyster at this point. There are many ways they can go. And, you know, again, with many ways to go, there isn't necessarily a clear, proper one just yet. So it'll be very fun to see where our runners do choose to go.
Honestly, I think that's my favorite kind of seat at that point in time, is when the world is your oyster. You can go wherever you want. Things open up. Now, version 29 in particular, this version of the randomizer has really opened things up. We've seen kind of the story over and over again in this tournament has been open up the world to you beginning, hold back on one or two items to prevent you from getting into Ganon's tower, and hold on to them and make you run all over the place for it.
Well, typically, and it's been the way for a long time, where you'll get a lot of items and eventually you'll gain access to the entire world, but there's no indication that you'll have a clear path. You might have 2 or 3 dungeons that are on the table and even some overworld, but you do have access to everything. And at that point, because the game is so open, you're only looking for an item or 2 left, and that item or 2, the fact that it can be mostly anywhere can kind of troll a runner, and that's where a lot of gambles and educated decisions come into play. You know, you might have access to both ice and swamp, and you need the ice rod in either in order to finish Turtle Rock, but which one you go to will factor into, you know, a swing of the race, or, you know, the way you get through things most quickly.
And here we see chauncyjay making a bit of a route divergence. I like this play by chauncyjay. He's going over and grabbing Hype Cave, and because he has the mirror, he's going to still be able to route down and get the mini Moldorm cave, and it's not that much extra time. And he's rewarded with at least the Bombos medallion. Is it going to be Hype, or is it going to be Dud? 5 rupees. Got
the quesadilla platter. Not too much else right here. And some money. So the medallion Bombos can duel as a way to get into Ice Palace. the fact that they have the fire rod makes that irrelevant, but you do still need a medallion to enter Misery Mire or Turtle Rock. This is also randomized, and if you'll notice in the bottom of the tracker, it is currently blank because we don't have that information. So whether that cave was, you know, hyper useful at all still remains to be seen, but the medallion is definitely great potential currently.
Yeah, Hype Cave, pending excitement at this point in time. I don't know if we can legitimately call it a Hype Cave until we know if Bombos is required. So right now, 2 of 10, but with an incomplete. You can turn your homework in later.
Yeah, and for those that may not be aware, it's referred to as Hype Cave because in the older versions, especially in version 18, the logic was a little bit more linear. There was a little bit more of a set plan that you do. And, you know, when people would go, the meta at the time was really to try and get to that cave with the 5 items, and usually there was something good for you. So that's kind of where it became Hype Cave, because every time you went there, it was really hype. You get some, you know, great items for the rest of your run. Now it's not quite the case, but you know, it's been grandfathered in as a very endearing term for a, you know, often not as endearing cave currently.
Speak for yourself. I've had some hype in my races, but
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, they're kind of the mini Moldorm where Jay is currently is another common check with a lot of items, the 5 there. So you could almost say that between that Death Mountain and, you know, the quote-unquote Hype Cave, they got Hype, Hyper, and Hypest Cave. But either way, high density, you know, item location is always exciting.
So chauncyjay only found blue mail in the mini Moldorm cave as well. We're really having not a lot of progression. I mean, we have Dark World access, which is nice, but it's opened up the world and really not given us a whole lot else at this point, hasn't it?
No, not really. And I think it is to be expected, just given how much has opened. But something to not neglect is that even if you're finding items and they're not direct progression, you are still marking off areas in your mind that you don't have to worry about. And even then, you are getting items that help you to progress. So finding those 10 arrows for Jay, they might not be very, you know, appealing at the moment, but arrows can sometimes be hard to find, and they do help to round out your arsenal. You know, finding that heart container at the dam, that's more safety for the Dark World. All these little things do add up, even if they don't seem as, you know, immediately exciting or valuable. Safeties, mail, you know, bottles, sword upgrades, they all really help, you know, your progression through the game.
Speaking of sword upgrades, chauncyjay does find our first sword of the game at about 1640 or so. He routed over into the Zora area using his flippers. It's perfectly in logic at this point in time. No fake flippers required. And he has the money to go ahead and check Zora. So looks like Pooh is going to be doing some other checks in the area. The Hylia Island, and also, which is the Cane of Burna. My favorite cane ever.
Yeah, it's definitely a very fun cane. It's a very fun game, and you know. But in order to get to that island, you actually do need to enter the Dark World, have the flippers, and use the mirror. And it just so happens that our racers have that. So the Cane of Burna, being able to unlock certain areas like Spy Cave and the like, might actually be part of the logical string that the Seed is telling them. It's still very early to you know, go on it too heavily. But the fact that it is already open to them may be an indicator that they may have to use that sometime soon.
All right, so Pooh routing a little bit differently, checking things like the Hobo area and the Lake Hylia Island, certainly early. If something was there, it would have benefited Pooh in his routing choices at this point. Nothing, though. So we'll see if he goes over, ends up routing in. He has enough rupees for Zora at this point in time. It'd be a solid check, and he'd pick up his sword, and I'm pretty sure he'd be a little bit more comfortable with that. Instead, looks like he's going over here to Ice Rod Cave.
Yeah, it's you know, it kind of ties into the routing discussion from earlier. Given that they have the hammer and the mirror, they could actually go into the Dark World and pair the Catfish or Quakefish check with the Zora check. But if you skip Catfish altogether, you save some time. So in POOBear's case, if he decided to do the entire Zora check and forego Catfish, he will save a little bit of time there, even though it is common to try and string those two together if you can. It's not always ideal, but it is one of those little things that does add up to the rest of the game.
All right, we see our
map check.
Absolutely. We have Green Pendant is going to be in Thieves Town, which is interesting. That's an early one we can check. And then Skull Woods and Ice Palace. Normally the vanilla 5 and 6 or no, those are 4 and 5 at that point. I'm sorry. But those two are our other pendants. They may or may not be required. Now, what does that mean? That means Turtle Rock is fully required. Misery Mire is fully required. So we have Flute, the King of Samaria, that is absolutely going to be required. There's a lot of things that we know are going to be necessary in this particular seed. What's our hype cave or our pedestal index at this point in time?
Oh, I don't know currently. There's still a lot to go over, but it's for those watching, it's the idea that when you learn which dungeons are pendant and crystal, it can tell you what items you absolutely need to finish a seed and which items you may not need. So if you're even more unfamiliar with the original game, you need 7 crystals in order to unlock Ganon's tower, and then to defeat Ganon himself, you need at least the Master Sword. Among like a few other things, of course, but it's the idea where you're really looking for those crystal dungeons. Those are the main ones you want to complete. In a pendant dungeon, you may not have to complete it or want to complete it, but depending on how the items are placed, they may factor in. So they're worth considering. Seeing that Skullwoods would be a pendant, but Turtle Rock is a crystal, both require the Fire Rod. So in this case, even though you don't need the Fire Rod for Skullwoods, you do need it for Turtle Rock, so the Fire Rod is still required. But having that Fire Rod, now you might be able to do Skullwoods, which may also have an item.
Now, I saw GrandPOOBear actually go up and check Zora. I missed it if he missed the Waterfall Fairy. Did he actually check that, or did he bypass that? Because that would be really bad for Pooh, missing that first sword upgrade.
Yeah, I'm not sure currently myself. That would be really unfortunate. That Waterfall Cave is a little bit of a newer addition. It's been around for a little while now, but you know, as the randomizer develops, you know, the great dev team, they keep adding and tweaking things, and so they're, you know, it really helps to round out the game. And little things like that, you know, add locations. And they can be a little bit hard to miss if you're not, again, as familiar with the game. It's very much a knowledge game. It really, you know, comes into play. And a heart container for Jay on the mirror ledge. So even more safety. So these guys have been doing a lot of overworld, which is very smart. And they get a lot of little things for their gameplay. Having more hearts in blue mail, Dark World is not nearly as intimidating now. It's still tricky, most certainly, but the margin of error is lowered a lot.
Absolutely. So Chauncey is checking some of these other overworld locations. It's interesting he's avoided the Village of Outcasts up to this point in time. Looks like he's routing himself over in that direction. We are limited kind of in our movement right now. No boots, no flute, so can't run around Hyrule like you're crazy at this point. Pooh is going, looks like, over to the Village of Outcasts after a quick map check.
Yeah, I do like Jay's decision to go to the Mirror Ledge. It can be a very awkward place to go. Not only do you need to be in the Dark World, but it's just one of those locations where it's a little bit of a one-off. Depending on how you enter the Dark World, it can change your routing. Typically, a lot of players like to go in either a clockwise or a counterclockwise tour around the Dark World. So the items that you get and where you enter the Dark World is very impactful. Having the flippers, both players could go in more of a clockwise tour where you can check the Mirror Ledge and then go over, jump over across the Catfish, or subsequently go south to Palace of Darkness and Pyramid area. Or you can go in more of a counterclockwise fashion because you would need the Golden Mitts in order to traverse from the southern area over into the town from the south. So, you know, a lot of little things to consider, and there isn't necessarily a clear or best route for each player. So I do like him going to the Mirror Ledge, get it out of the way, and then he could probably just do a simple counterclockwise tour, not having to worry about that.
Yeah, GrandPOOBear at this point in time, in Thieves Town, it is the green pendant. He knows it, and it's the right play. There's our wonderful, absolutely wonderful Titan's Mitt at that point in time. That's going to open up the world, make things a little bit easier to route together. chauncyjay also is dipping into Thieves. I imagine he'll be getting it almost immediately. The question is, what kind of routing are these two runners going to do? Because this is a pendant, a very common play for runners to do is to do the first 4 treasure chests in Thieves Town and then dip out? Or are they going to try to sit and gather some more information and more items through here? Being a green pendant, I suspect we might see some people diving in a little bit longer, but Pooh looks like he's noping out right now.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. The mirror, not only does it help you in routing the overworld, but you can use it to warp back to the start of the dungeon. Another option players have is to do a death warp, which is where you'll, of course, die, and it'll send you back to the last entrance that you came in from the overworld. So typically it'll lead you to the very back of the dungeon, but the mirror is is much quicker and less deathy way to do that. And yeah, each dungeon also has its own number of items. So in Thieves Town, as a dungeon, it will always have 4 items. There's no guarantee that those items are useful, but the maximum amount and minimum amount of items it will contain are 4. And so having 8 chests in total with 4 in the front, you know, it makes it a very quick and popular check to check the first 4 and hope for between, you know, 1 and 3 items to get. In this case, it happened to be Vanilla Titansmith. The vanilla game, which is where the Titansmith would be. And finding a vanilla item in its own dungeon can be a little bit trolly, but it does happen from time to time, and it can be, you know, either greatly enjoyed or, you know, annoyed if you happen to find it.
Absolutely. So Pooh is actually doing a bit of a route divergence. I imagine Chauncey's going to be close behind. Chauncey's going down to check the dig game, and he's rewarded with green goo in a bottle. I imagine he's going to be going up and checking Jeremiah almost immediately with these, doing the hammer peg check. Everything's in logic at this point in time. So these two are really kind of following each other's routing at this point. And, well, hello.
Yeah, Kay and Samaria, very nice find. And just real quick, if you look on Jay's side, those darker rocks are what you need the Titansmith for. So kind of what I was mentioning earlier, and now you can see it more visually, you would not be able to take this route that he's currently taking without the mitts. But getting the mitts, it opens up locations, but also opens up travel options. But going back to GrandPOOBear's side with Kay and Samaria, the Kay and Samaria is required in Misery Mire to finish it and to get anything in Turtle Rock. So it's a very nice find. So already with the hammer, the Titansmith, Kay and Samaria, and medallion, entering Turtle Rock may very well already be a possibility. There's still more items that they would like to have before they do that, but it is currently on the table. The mountain, I can imagine, will be a very popular decision they may choose to go to in the near future.
It's possible, but technically anything up on Death Mountain right now would be out of logic. In order to get up to Death Mountain, really the trick is going to be you need either the flute or the lamp. The game will not force you to do any dark rooms throughout the entire game, at least until the lamp is within logic in order for you to be able to grab it. Or if you can flute up to the top of Death Mountain. Since we don't have either the flute or the lamp right now, the game isn't expecting us to be able to go up there. Not saying that either of these runners couldn't do that dark room. It's one of the easier dark rooms that's in the game. It just would be a sequence break. So logically, we'd be expected to have one of those 2 items before going up there.
Exactly. The game requires certain things, certain parameters to be met. So in this case, without having the lantern, in the vanilla game, you'd have the lantern, lift up the rock, go up the mountain. They don't have the lantern here, but the game does allow you to sequence break through various tricks or even minor glitches. So in this case, they could both go to the mountain, but the game logically does not require them to go to the mountain currently until they find that lantern. When they find that lantern, then the entire mountain opens up. So part of routing, gambling, and making decisions is thinking, do I want to do a sequence break here? I might find something I want that can give me an early edge, or I might not find anything because the logic actually did not require it whatsoever.
And both GrandPOOBear and chauncyjay actually showing off to us one of the cooler glitches that's available in Randomizer. We call it the fake powder glitch. In order to do the fake powder glitch, what you have to do is first run entirely out of magic. 2, go over into the magic. I mean, you can do it kind of anywhere, but you would switch over to the Cane of Samaria and then use the Cane of Samaria. In the middle of the error message that you get saying you can't do it because you have magic, pause the menu, switch over to the mushroom. Once you do that, the powder will actually activate even though you don't necessarily have the powder, and that will allow you to do things like powder anti-fairies and turn them into fairies, or in this case, open up the magic bat there and get the magic bat item. It is an interesting glitch. We're not entirely sure how the logic works behind it, but it works, and it's not a major glitch. So it's absolutely allowed for both of these runners, and they both showed off its use.
Yeah, and just real quick, while NPCs don't typically feature too much of a role with some exceptions, there are some NPCs that will, affect you quite negatively. And unfortunately, talking to that stump kid, while he might be a lovely person to converse with, he does eat up some time. But with that said, two NPCs that you might want to talk to are the bomb shop, the vendor at the bomb shop who can tell you which crystals you need to complete in order to get the bomb to go up to Pyramid Fairy. It's more prevalent in Kisani when you don't know which dungeons are crystal 5 or 6. But Sahasrara can also tell you what dungeon is the green pennant, because in the vanilla game you would normally get the green pennant and turn it in for Pegasus boots. And Randomizer, where the green pennant is of course randomized, and then the item you get is also randomized. So it can be a small little bit of early information, and in certain randomizer modes it does become more prevalent.
And GrandPOOBear is Fire Flower Mario. I mean, we have the Fire Rod, so I guess that's technically true, but Red Mail, he's a coward.
Red Mail, well, yeah. Red Mail is very handy to have. The mail's basically half the damage that you take, and so being at Red Mail, with some exception, our players are much more tanky. You might only see about 10 hearts on their screen, but you can effectively quadruple it at this point.
Yeah, it's a very nice play. So an interesting route divergence here. GrandPOOBear is going to check Agina's cave. This is one of those early locations that is possible, doesn't always have something. I wish I had a fish. Oh, nothing. He doesn't tell us anything, Pooh. Chauncey looks like he's going to be checking the island, and it's nothing. Oh! Wow, Pooh just finds a find.
Yeah, that's a very nice find. Agina is one of those awkward locations that you can get to right from the start of the game, but it can, with it being a little bit out of the way, it can be difficult to get to, but he is very much rewarded in finding the Pegasus boots. So to give people an idea, Link's movement pattern oscillates at 1, 2, 1, 2, or 2, 1, 2, 1 pixels a frame, but just rounding it down, when Link moves, he moves at about 1.5 pixels for every frame. But with the boots, you're moving at 4 pixels a frame, so it's more than double speed. So in terms of raw speed, it is very good to have. But the boots also do allow access to different techniques that you might not otherwise be able to do, such as quick hops off of a ledge. If you go up to one of those ledges, instead of just nudging off of it for a long time, you can actually tap the dash button and you'll quick jump off of it. And POOBear also showing another feature of the boots. If you have boots and the sword, you can do something, well, not even necessarily the sword, but you can do something called an item dash. It is a Japanese 1.0 exclusive glitch where if you hit your Y item, and the A button on the same frame, you can actually dash while using the weapon or item. They'll have different effects depending on what it is, but in this case, he was able to do a hammer dash all the way through those pegs instead of having to hit them individually one at a time.
Yeah, hammer dashing is one of those I would call a swag move at this point in time. Something that, people who've been in the randomizer community and even in the NMG community do in part to show off their skills at this point, but it does have practical applications, most likely at the hammer dash or at the hammer pegs area, but also in that transition there. So GrandPOOBear turning in his mushroom. I'm really enjoying Pooh's routing at this point in time. He's doing very well. Not able to quite get the spin speed dash there. Chauncey is following right behind him. This is actually not good for chauncyjay. They haven't had a lot of route divergence. They've had some, but at this point in time, GrandPOOBear, if they're having similar routing, those boots are just going to do nothing but get Pooh further and further and further ahead. So the longer chauncyjay avoids getting the boots, and the longer that they don't have route divergence, the more this plays to Pooh's advantage right now.
Yeah, it's part of the randomizer. Players will find different items and they can lead each player in a different direction. In this case, boots aren't normally at Agina, but in this case they were, and by checking Agina, GrandPOOBear was rewarded. A lot of times little decisions like those can really swing a match in a person's favor. You might sacrifice time to make an extra check. That extra check could be the thing that gives you an advantage. So if you know that your opponent, for example, does not like to check Agina, if you make an effort to check Agina, you might might sacrifice, say, 1 minute to do that, but if there's something good from it, you might gain a big advantage. In this case, getting the boots early means that the earlier you have it, the more it plays a role in the rest of the seed. So the longer the race goes on, the more of an advantage POOBear will get. So in Jay's case, we really hope that he gets the boots earlier than later so that he can equalize that opportunity.
All right, so some route divergence here, actually. Pooh is going into the Dark World from this bottom route. chauncyjay looks like he might be heading back over and doing something in the Village of Outcasts. We'll see where these two are running at this point.
Yeah, and it should be noted real quick that GrandPOOBear tried to do the aforementioned spin speed. Spin speed follows a similar rule to item dashing, except in this case you're charging your sword, and 1 frame after you release it, you hit the A button, and it will kind of store the Pegasus speed. So if you do see it later in the race, you'll see the players do that trick, and then they'll be able to zoop zoop all about without having to use the boots. It puts the player into a glitch state, but for simplicity's sake, it's just a great movement speed technique.
Absolutely. So some route divergence here. GrandPOOBear is going to check out the eastern area, also check out what's in Sahasrah's closet over here while he's in the area. With the mirror, he can check both eastern and Palace of Darkness. The issue right now is Palace of Darkness may be completely bow-locked at this point in time. If the first treasure chest in Palace of Darkness... Oh, hold the phone. Pooh just picked up the hookshot in one of the early item locations that's accessed. That's a pretty significant pickup for Pooh as well, isn't it?
Yeah, the hookshot is definitely used in some situations. It's very nice to find. It won't actually give more access to the rest of Death Mountain, but it will give access to 3 more chests in Hookshot Cave in Dark World Death Mountain. As well, it is necessary to beat the game logically, because at the very end in Ganon's Tower, after you beat Moldorn 2, you need the hookshot in order to hookshot across. Real quick, unfortunately for POOBear, he doesn't have the money to enter Palace of Darkness. His routing has been very good here, pairing Sahasrah and the Dark World with Palace of Darkness in Eastern. In Eastern, you do need the bow to finish it, but you can do everything in Eastern except for one of the rooms before the final boss here. But Eastern also does have a rupee room, so coming here, Pooh can get all the rupees he needs for Pod and use that to go back into Pod or Palace of Darkness.
Yeah, we'll see. Logically, it'll be interesting to watch Pooh go through Eastern Palace. At some point, he's going to run into these dark rooms, which, again, by logic, he wouldn't be required to do. But if he knows these dark rooms and does the dark room navigation, it would absolutely be a great thing for him to be able to pick up those rupees and move on. Now, he's not going to be able to get past anything without the bow, of course, so we'll see what else he finds in here. He may nope out relatively quickly. Again, it's just interesting to see this play. It's a bit of a gamble to go to the Eastern Pod area without either the lamp or the bow. We'll see if it pays off, though. His gambles have really paid off for him up to this point in time.
Yeah, and over on Jay's screen, he used the sword to cut open that curtain. So if you're unfamiliar, that is one thing that you do need the sword for. Those vines, you need the sword in order to cut them down. So, you know, Jay having the fire rod and the sword is completely able to fight Mothula here in Skullwoods. Skullwoods has 2 items total, but in this case it's a pendant, so it's a little bit of a gamble to go here too, hoping for an item, but it is fully in logic.
So Jay doing a couple different strategies that you don't always get to see with Mothula. First of all, he went ahead and released the bee, so the bee was doing some damage and kind of knocking him off the spike walls. He's also, because he has red mail, Mothula himself does less damage to you than the spikes. Mothula would do a half-hearted damage. The spikes will do 1-hearted damage. Doesn't matter what kind of armor you have there. So if you have red armor, you kind of want to stay bodied up to Mothula. If not, sometimes you can stay a little bit further back.
Yeah, it should be noted that the spikes will always do 1 heart of damage to you no matter what mail you have. They are considered a class 4 damage source, as is the gold sword, and Mothula is also immune to that number. So what makes the Mothula fight annoying is that the spikes do not hurt Mothula, and they can override the damage that is done to Mothula. So that often, with that paired with the RNG from the fight itself, makes Mothula a very annoying fight for a lot of players. Can be very unpredictable and of course difficult. And over on Pooh's screen, this is where we would see the lantern coming into use. He is currently in a dark room. You can still see little things, especially using your sword, the sparkle it has to help navigate through. Without the lantern, this is considered a sequence break. The game, whatever GrandPOOBear finds here, the game is expecting that you already have the lantern. So in this case, we know that the lantern could not be here, but whatever items he finds, like an ice rod, could be very handy. And now, going with that logic chain, we know that in order to enter Turtle Rock, the game expects you to have the lantern. You do need the lantern for further in Turtle Rock, but in order to even defeat Trinex or get past one of the later rooms, you need the lantern.
Well, and I don't know if that gives us a whole lot of knowledge, because you have to have the lantern to get through Turtle Rock anyway, and you need the lantern before you get the ice rod, which is only really useful for defeating Trinex. So that's not a ton of knowledge gained there. If that was something, for example, the bow, we would know the lantern would not be locked behind the bow in any capacity.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You need to get it to before you get to Trinex anyway, but the game just fully expects that even before then you need the lantern. And it's little things like that that really help you to piece together more of the puzzle. It's not just always taking a shot in the dark, hoping that you find items and you're able to get through. It's kind of the picture that the seed paints, and the more you play it and decisions you make and the items that are revealed, it'll help to, facilitate and paint that picture for you.
This is a bit of a gutsy play right now by GrandPOOBear. Looks like he's getting ready to go into Swamp Palace. Swamp is absolutely a crystal dungeon. He has everything necessary to complete it. Hookshot, hammer, mirror in order to even get in. And Swamp Palace does have, I believe it's 5 items located into it. It's one of the more chest-dense locations. It can just take a little bit of time to get through here. So we'll see if this gamble pays off for GrandPOOBear.
Yeah, it actually happens to have 6 items. It is the most item-dense location in the entire game. Following up would be 5 from Turtle Rock and Pod, and of course subsequently going to 4, 3, and 2. But Swamp Palace, it's a longer dungeon to complete, so a lot of players don't like to go through. You have a lot of different enemies, so different RNGs and things that can get in your way. You have water to go through. It's just very long and spread out. The time in order to even get into the dungeon is very front-loaded, but it does have many items in it, so it can be a very dense place to find items potentially. The fact that it's crystal means he needs to beat it anyway, and on the way to Argus he will find items, and so I really do like this decision from him. There is, a great potential of stuff to be here, and even if not, he's still pushing forward, progressing the seed to completion, with it being a crystal dungeon.
Yeah, that's, you'll get used to seeing runners at certain points in time, and you can kind of pick out what their logic thinking is. And sometimes it comes down to simply, is there a crystal dungeon I can complete with the items I have? I'm going to do it. And then other people prefer doing overworld routing locations as soon as they can unlock certain things. I absolutely like this dive from Pooh. It's not something that you would see a lot of, I think, people in the traditional randomizer community do, but if this pays off, it's absolutely going to pay off for GrandPOOBear. It's something that, because Chauncey's been around for a while, I don't know if he would make that dive, which absolutely plays to the advantages that Pooh will have.
Yeah, Jay is going to get his green pin by going through blind here, so we'll have to see if that will reward him. But Swamp is definitely a polarizing dungeon. It has a lot of items within it, but it requires a lot of items to get into it. In past versions, Swamp is actually considered more of a gold mine, but in other versions it fell out of popularity. That combined with the fact that as a go mode dungeon, it is much quicker than having to full clear it. GrandPOOBear is seeing that without another sword upgrade, it's very difficult to try and hit the switch behind the wall. Makes creative use to get around that, and is, cognizantly aware that he's, not going to flood the key in the dungeon, which is a, very much a newer player type trap, and even older player type trap. It's very easy to autopilot this dungeon, but being aware of that, he's able to get through. And just real quick, the sword upgrades actually do extend the range of your sword sword. So the fire sword cannot reach that switch. Sword upgrades will reach that switch, and hence why he was having a little bit of an issue there.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever actually seen. It makes sense that you would use the Cane of Samaria there if you have it. Most people just switch over to like a boomerang or something of that nature, or use the sword, of course. Real heads-up play, because I don't know if Pooh would have learned being able to do that by watching people, because I don't know if I've seen it done.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can get a great wealth of knowledge by watching people, but you really need to play yourself too, because the strategy a person uses might be very specific to their situation. So it can lead you on a false narrative of how to operate when you yourself play. So really, the biggest thing to getting better at Randomizer is just to play more. The knowledge comes, you know, a lot of little things come. New situations present themselves. Every race is a new opportunity, and getting into the tournament, it's a great way to contrast your gameplay to another. That way you can see not only what you did, but what the opponent did, and even did in the same instance, in the same seed. It can be a great wealth of knowledge and a great tool.
So chauncyjay is going over here into the eastern Dark Palace area. He's going to very shortly pick up his hook shot. We'll see if that guides him up to, for example, to the Death Mountain area. POOBear picks up his Master Sword.
Yeah, finding a Master Sword and Let There Be Lantern. There are no more dark rooms in the game for GrandPOOBear, so that earlier check to Eastern Palace is now within logic from what we can piece together. Finding that Ice Rod, he is now still on track. That is within logic. So Turtle Rock is now looking much better within logic by extension.
Absolutely. And I guess also pointing out, not only did Pooh pick up the Master Sword, he also picked up the lamp. So this is a useful swamp palace? I don't know. I'm not used to seeing this.
I mean, I don't want to call it myself, but because I kind of like swamp. But I know some people will kind of have dungeons they like, or dungeons they don't like, or dungeons that seem to pay off for them, and dungeons that seem to really not pay off for them. But in this case, swamp definitely has use. Master Sword, very good weapon to have. The charge spin of the Fetter Sword is now the same damage as the normal slash of the Master Sword. And of course, following that same logic, the charge spin of the Master Sword will be the normal slash of a tempered. So when they find the temper, they will be hitting for some heavy damages.
So it's really interesting that he was able to pick that up. So Pooh went into this dungeon expecting to maybe have to do Argus as the menu boss, switching between the hookshot and then hammering everything at that point in time. But now that he has the Master Sword, he's going to have a much, much, much easier time on the Argus fight. I don't know if he was necessarily expecting that, but definitely welcoming it at this point.
Absolutely. Every weapon has a different class and rank to what it does. But for the sake of simplicity, certain weapons do more damage, and certain bosses are actually immune to types of damage, typically if the rating is too low. So in the case of Argus here for GrandPOOBear, these little puffballs, or popcorn, you know, whichever affectionate name you like to refer to them by, you know, it's the Fighter Sword will actually not do any damage to them. The charge spin of the Fighter Sword would, though, because it is doing technically Master Sword damage. So you see with the Master Sword, GrandPOOBear is able to hurt them, and it takes 2 Master Sword swipes in order to take out a puff. Conversely, a tempered sword swing would only take 1 strike to take out the puff. So with the Fighter Sword having the hammer does tempered damage. So you could hookshot the puff and then hammer the puff, which will kill it in 1 hit with the hammer. But having the Master Sword, you no longer have to do that menuing, and menuing can take a lot of time. So for POOBear, he got a much more, I suppose, convenient fight, if nothing else.
At the very minimum. I think I was keeping track of items. GrandPOOBear is going to get the big key drop, here from Argus. What that means is there's still 1 item left to go in here. He's going to have to dive back in order to get whatever's on that big key treasure chest there.
Yeah, definitely. Jay also being an Eastern here. Again, a dark room, not within logic in terms of his game plan, but we do know that it is in logic for the Ice Rod based on POOBear's side. So we have the benefit of knowledge here.
And Pooh is actually leaving. He's not going to go back. I don't know if he double-checked or his items to see if he had to do it or not. I honestly did not keep track of his item count there, so not entirely sure what is going on. But he does have his first crystal. It's really interesting. GrandPOOBear has his first crystal at about 49 minutes. chauncyjay has cleared 2 dungeons, but at this point, both of those 2 dungeons are pendant dungeons. And they've been, for lack of a better term, worthless up to this point in time. He has not really found anything in Thieves Town or Skull Woods that gives him any sort of advantage over POOBear. Pooh, meanwhile, has really found all the value in Swamp Palace.
Yeah, but speaking of Swamp Palace, looks like Jay is heading there next, which makes a lot of sense. And this is kind of where, when you open up a lot of the world, where your progression might be, the items you're looking for, they can be anywhere. So, of course, POOBear, he's now checking some overworld, but the fact that he's got the entire mountain open to him and a bunch of other low locations, you know, notwithstanding Ice Palace, you know, there's a lot of different places you can go. Ice Palace could have your word, but being a pendant dungeon, it might be risky to go into, because if there is nothing in there, you just added a huge time sink to your game. So you have to be very cognizant and careful of that. And going along with that, counting items can be really tricky too. You might go into Ice Palace and get your items sooner, it having 3. And then doing that, you might be able to skip the rest of the dungeon. But if you're not counting your items, you might invest more time into the dungeon than you know, you otherwise would like to.
So GrandPOOBear is actually making the trek. We now have Death Mountain completely in logic, both Light World Death Mountain and Dark World Death Mountain, thanks to the lamp that he picked up that is in Swamp Palace. So it's in logic. Between the Light World has, let me count them, 5, 6, 7, 8 treasures just on the east side, not to mention Spectacle Rock and the Spectacle Rock cave. So that's, you know, 10 treasures total on Death Mountain from the overworld locations. And then you have the Dark World locations where we have 4 in Hookshot Cave, you have 2 in Super Bunny Cave, plus the Spike Cave area. Spike Cave's not quite in logic yet, I believe at this point. Spike Cave has some confusing logic associated with it, with invincibility items. But this is just a treasure trove right now.
Well, going back onto that, the Cane of Samaria, the Cane of Burna and the Cape do provide invulnerability to things such as spikes with the aforementioned Spike Cave. So knowing that the Cane of Burna is on the floating island, Spike Cave actually is within logic. The Cane of Burna and the Cape both make you immune to damage. The Cane of Burna has a side effect where it can increase the lag within the game, but to give you guys also an idea on the items themselves, in terms of safeties, they're very good, but they also have their own different use. You might think that they're fairly synonymous in the fact that they make you invulnerable, but when you look at stuff like the health and the magic meter, they're actually just more so for the picture effect, but there is a number system to these things. In terms of the Cane of Burna, it costs 16 magic in order to initiate it, and then 1 magic per tick, or second, however it works. I don't remember at the moment, however you want to count it. So for long periods of invulnerability, you actually want to use the Cane of Burna, but the Cape has no activation cost. It only costs 4 magic per second or tick. So for short times of invulnerability, you want to use the Cape. So in the case of Spike Cave, it being a longer area, the Cane of Burna is actually the preferred option to use if you're not tanking as many health to your hearts.
All right, so GrandPOOBear looks like he's actually doing the Dark World routing first in here. chauncyjay is going ahead in Swamp Palace, so he will be picking up these items relatively quickly. Pooh does have a nice little advantage right now. Nothing so far in the Super Bunny Cave, but we have all of Hookshot Cave still in logic for us in the Dark World, plus the whole light side.
Yeah, most certainly. I really like the bomb that Jay put there. it can get really confusing in Swamp between raising and lowering switches. But when you leave that, when you fill the water in this area and then you leave that room, you want the switches to be up. You want the blue side to be up with those pegs. So you're able to come to this left side and find both parts of it. So, you know, not only being aware of it, but, you know, using bomb, make sure to hit it was very good of him because he also too lacks the boomerang. So, you know, GrandPOOBear using Samara, Jay using a bomb, you know, different ways to do different things.
And Chad is asking about, and I continually forget, sometimes we have to explain these things, GrandPOOBear did use the mirror block glitch as he was climbing through the cave. What ends up happening is when you are moving a block and it's not in a dungeon, that block effectively doesn't exist inside the game's programming. So if you're mashing on your Y button using the mirror while you're moving a block, that will effectively make the block completely disappear. Now, that's a glitch that only works in the overworld locations. If you try to use that in, for example, a dungeon, it won't work. There's something within the programming that actually prevents that from doing. But in the overworld, for example, the Super Bunny Cave, when you're trying to unlock the swamp area, hammering on that mirror button while you're moving a block can make it completely disappear and really save quite a bit of time.
Yeah, when you're in a dungeon and try to use the mirror, you'll end up warping to the back of the dungeon, which can be a unfortunate surprise if you try to do the same trick within a dungeon. But something that can be done is you can also use the hook shot. The hook shot makes you invulnerable as you extend and retract it. So you can use the mirror to effectively erase the block while it's in transit. But you can also, you know, in the same token, use the hook shot to you know, pull Link through. So if you have the hookshot or mirror, you can use them in the same application. A lot of people like the mirror because it just erases the block and it's no longer an obstacle or in your way. It can make things much cleaner inside the overworld caves and areas.
Absolutely. So we have the GrandPOOBear still cleaning up this Eastern Death Mountain area. chauncyjay does pick up his lamp and his Master Sword, probably feeling the same sort of relief that POOBear did when he found that. It'll be interesting to see where Chauncey ends up going immediately afterwards. If he's going to check those some other locations. Remember, he still doesn't have those boots, and that's going to just continually play more and more of an advantage. But Chauncey's keeping up right now with POOBear, at least in where they're at in the seed.
Yeah, the advantage of the boots can get overstated at times, but it's a lot of the little things. You know, again, you can make up the advantage of the boots simply in just more efficient or better routing. Everything goes towards making your race as good as it can be. So while the boots is often a very simple and easy option, the advantage it gives can largely be negated or overstated depending on the situation. But free speed boost is certainly never a thing to get too, you know, worried about. GrandPOOBear does a very nice bomb jump there. The bomb jump is actually a lot simpler than people might think. It can be very intimidating, but certain bomb jumps almost have a bit of a fail-safe to them. In the case of that bomb jump, if you set up your your Y coordinate first, and then you set up your X coordinate, the game will create a bit of a barrier when you go to the edge. So to give you an idea, if you hold out your sword and walk down and get, you know, close to the southern part of the edge, and then go to the left, go to the west, the game will almost kind of push you in case you go a little bit too far, and you can do that to set up bomb jumps very quickly.
Okay, I'm going to go out on the record and say, you know, anything to do with anything bombs, listen to Giselle. Seriously, guys. Bomb queen here.
Thank you. Yeah, so I really like bombs and bomb tricks, so I've spent a lot of time with them. But
excuse me. So POOBear takes a look at what's on Turtle Rock. It is the Bombos Battalion. If he wants to, he can absolutely dive into Turtle Rock and do it now. A little bit hesitant, I suspect. So he's going over here to Tower of Hera, which is also a crystal dungeon. Might as well do it.
Yeah, that's true. He has everything that's really ideal for Turtle Rock, but it's still a very tricky dungeon. Having the red mail, and at least having Master Sword, it won't be too bad, but of course the more things you get, the better. But everything being in logic for Turtle Rock and a crystal, and also not just a crystal, but if you look on the tracker, there's an asterisk next to it. That is to denote that it's a red crystal. It is one of the 2 crystals required to enter the Pyramid Fairy location. The Pyramid Fairy gives 2 items, but you can only unlock that when you have gotten both of those crystal dungeons. So part of the hint of the seed might be that with having full access to Turtle Rock within logic, you might have to beat Turtle Rock and then find a way over to Desert Palace, which they could do when they find either the book or the flute, open up Pyramid Fairy, and maybe find something in there. Now, it's still a bit early yet, but it is something to consider.
All right, we haven't really seen a whole lot of anything up to this point in time for... Oh, Pooh takes a hit with that wonderful Sparky there, but I don't know if we've actually found any items at this point in time as we're climbing Tower of Hera. Meanwhile, chauncyjay does look like he's beginning his ascent up Death Mountain as well.
Yeah, so I'll find a bunch of things here too, and it makes a lot of sense. It's a hot spot with all the items, and again, Jay finding his lantern in Swamp Lair, he can now too also logically get up to, you know, Turtle Rock and all this area. So, you know, very good spot for both players to be, and I suspect we'll probably find something of worth, you know, not too far off from here now.
Well, Pooh is having some real trouble with that particular area. We'll see if he changes his decision-making at that point in time, but really kind of struggling getting over there. I don't necessarily blame him. He was trying to set up a bomb jump, tried to hook shot across. That Sparky is much more annoying than I think most people realize when you're trying to speed run the game and go through it as quickly as you can.
Yeah, and something also to be aware of is that if you fall the 2 floors down and you're in that main hub area past the switch, it can be a little annoying to get past the switches, but if you use the mirror will reset the dungeon. So even if you defeat those hard hat beetles, they will get reset. But a very nice bomb jump from POOBear here. Real quick, you need to be within a 2 pixel tolerance of the hole in order to make a 2-tile jump with a bomb. But if you bonk against the wall into the explosion, it actually increases that tolerance to 6 pixels. So an otherwise intimidating bomb jump, as long as it's performed properly, can be rendered, you know, very simple. You know, trying to do it on the fly might be a little bit tricky, but if you know of that and have practiced it a little bit, it should be, you know, very simple from there on. Some bomb jumps follow a little bit of different rules, but generally speaking, that is the rule of thumb.
Yeah, just dropping the knowledge bombs on us today.
Let's see what you did there.
Aha!
Oh.
All right, Pooh is using dash strats to get through Moldorm here. Got to be a little bit careful.
Yeah, this fight is affectionately called Trolldorm for a good reason. The RNG that Moldorm uses is very RNG, so he can go in some different directions. And doing the dash strat, you can kind of invuln your way through, but even that isn't foolproof. Moldorm can still hit you depending on the pixel and whatnot. I don't even think that's properly understood. Moldorm does, but Moldorm do. Think Dorm. But the point is that it's a very tricky fight for new and old players alike.
All right, so we have Moldorm, who did drop the key to the basement. Now, that does mean that we have 1 item left here in Tower of Hera, and it is locked behind fire. Fire, of course, we've had access to literally from the beginning of the game. It's just a matter of, is this going to be worth it? This particular tile room, a lot of runners opt to avoid coming to this because it is kind of a long coffee break cutscene. Use whatever terminology you want to. It's boring.
Yeah, it's a lot of people try to avoid Tower Room if they can. Tower of Hera has 2 items, and so between the keys and the items you get, it can change how you route. It's very simple to try and dodge a Tower Room, but if you don't get your 2 items, that means you are leaving 1 item in the basement here. But yeah, earlier, if you get a small key and a big key, you could go to the tower room right away, but there's no guarantee there's anything here, and you still want to complete the tower. So people will take that big key and go to the top of the tower, and then really hope that they get, their 1 or 2 items, at least by the time they hit Moldorm. In this case, it didn't seem like that was the case. So in the tower room we go, and POOBear's time and effort is rewarded with a heart container, which Jay will reciprocate very shortly here.
Yeah, keep in mind this is Jay's first stop when he's up Death Mountain. So it looks like Jay had just caught up in a blink of an eye, but the reality is that Jay really has skipped both the light side of Death Mountain and the dark side of Death Mountain at this point in time. So he's still going to have to go back. It looked like he was getting really close to Pooh for a while, but that was an illusion at that point.
Yeah, sometimes there will be sinks and high fives, but exactly what you said. POOBear has been much more thorough on the mountain currently. But that said, he has left the mountain, and instead it looks like he is going to make a gamble into Ice Palace. Turok was a crystal, and he does have everything to beat it, but he's making a very gutsy play here into Ice Palace. It is a pendant. You do not need the pendant in order to beat the game, barring the pedestal item requiring all 3 items to attain. But if there is something in here, he will take a potential very massive lead.
I kind of like this gamble because if you think about the other options that we haven't seen, I don't know. I didn't check to see. I know Chauncey opened Palace of Darkness. I don't know if he actually went in. At that point in time, without the bow, it's the chance that it's bow locked, so not necessarily a good chance there. We can't get to Misery Mire yet. We can't open Turtle Rock, so that's another possibility. But we know Thieves Town and Skull Woods also don't have anything, so we can't get a Desert Palace yet. We've already cleared out Eastern Palace, so if you're looking for where our next progression could be, it's Ice Palace or Turtle Rock at this point in time, and I kind of like this play by Pooh, checking to see what's going to be in Ice Palace.
Yeah, I do think Turtle Rock was the proper play, but again, if there is something in here, then that will be pretty huge. Turtle Rock is most certainly the safer play. Oftentimes, a lot of people try to leave Turtle Rock to be their last dungeon, just because it's very convenient to walk over from Turtle Rock over to Ganon Tower. And Turtle Rock is a dungeon, though, it should be noted, is not that much faster in Go mode compared to doing it normally. Ice Palace, on the other hand, is much quicker in Go mode. But in this case, they're both still looking for items. And, if there is the required item in here, then it's a huge boon to POOBear to going in, early.
All right, so Pooh is setting up for the famed Ice Palace bomb jump. I think if there's a single bomb jump that people in this game are told to practice, it's this particular bomb jump right here, because of how much time it could potentially save in Ice Palace.
Yeah, it's definitely iconic. It is featured both in the speedrun and in Rando for the simple reason that the dungeon requires you to do some, peg puzzling. But if you're able to skip that, then you just can skip half the dungeon, and it makes it much quicker. And it should be noted that that bomb jump does have quite a few ways that it can be done. There are multiple setups, and even the way the trajectory works, where it blows the character, is important. A lot of people, especially when they're new, can also run into the trap where if you hold left coming out of that doorway, you will actually be 1 frame away from the wall. But if you fall and are still holding left, you will actually be flush to the wall. So a lot of times people will have their setup, they'll plant their bomb and adjust from there, fall and try and do the same thing, only to find that their setup won't work, simply because they're actually not in the same position they thought. In order to be 1 pixel away from the wall, you need to delay pressing left by at least 1 frame, and then you will be 1 pixel away from the wall again. So something to be aware of, especially if you're a newer runner and are a little bit perplexed as to why your setup may not be as consistent as you feel it should be.
All right, so do you want to explain this bomb jump that Pooh is trying to do right now?
There's not as much to explain to this one. There are a lot of different ways you can actually do it. The main thing to do is try and get to that top corner and place the bomb, however which way you want. I would say more to the left to, have your trajectory go across, but because you can cut the corner of the jump, it's not as strict as the other ones, but it can still be just as dangerous. And if you fall down here, then with those orange pegs up. You actually have to fall down here, go up the stairs, make a loop around in order to get to what is affectionately referred to as the iced tea room, which contains 1 item.
All right, so chauncyjay did go ahead and open up Turtle Rock. We don't know if he's going to dive in there or if he's just collecting these other items first before the dive. Pooh did miss that bomb jump, unfortunately. He is going to go over here to the iced tea room and then route from there at this point. Still nothing in Ice Palace up to this point in time, but still lots of opportunities.
Yeah, as a runner, when you do, go into a place and you're hoping for items or making a big gamble, the heart rate can definitely increase. Even just the dungeon music can sound like it's, really getting to you to go quicker. Here's the iced tea room that was mentioned earlier. But yeah, you saw GrandPOOBear fell down, decides, I'm not going to gamble this chest, and he made his way back up. And interestingly, even though a lot of these doors were locked, when you come in from them backwards, which the developers did not, intend, you actually can go right through them. So, irregardless of the keys you have, you can still maneuver through the dungeon a little bit.
Can I say something and make fun of you a little bit, Cassell?
Well, a little.
Okay. Did you really just say irregardless? That's not a word. It's okay. It's okay. I'm sorry. English major in me is like twitching. Sorry.
Okay, well, irregardless of that comment, Jay
oh my god! Okay, no, Jay is going into Turtle Rock. I'm sorry. Anyway, moving on.
It's okay. Yeah, irregardless of the situation, Jay going through Turtle Rock, which makes a lot of sense. It being a crystal, there are 5 items to find here. A lot of them probably going to be in the back on Laser Bridge, where there are 4 chests to get to. But with that mirror, they actually can do an additional check. There is a Light World location that will have some enemies called the Mimic, which are actually an otherwise Dark World exclusive enemy. But if you have the mirror, you can access it through the Dark World, through Turtle Rock, mirror on the outside ledge, and get an additional item check. So the dungeon effectively has 6 items in here. And already we are seeing 1 with powder.
Now, they both did the magic powder glitch, so powder at this point is just a nice safety item. And in Turtle Rock and Misery Mire and even Ganon's Tower, it's an absolutely wonderful item. Pooh, where are you going?
Yeah, POOBear in yonder Ice Palace is not finding as much as he might like, and I think he's making his way to Cold Stair.
He didn't open up a treasure. Okay, I think he might have counted his items and knows that he's done, so he didn't even need to open up that one. I'm going to hope he's counting his chests and didn't just walk right by one.
Ooh, and Jay in a very scary, oh my goodness, yeah. These chain chomps are a jerk. They're, this is the room that they're prominent within the game, and they decided to make a very cramped, complicated room with switches and whatnot, and they hurt. I believe they do 4 hearts of damage per hit. Very, very nasty. But Jay, using his blue potion, gets through and continues to make his way as GrandPOOBear jumps into the Argus, or the Cold Stair. They all look the same. Their eyes, okay?
Giant eyes. It's like a theme.
Cold Stair fight. And in order to break that ice shell, you need to either do 1 Bombos activation or 8 Fire Rod shots. So in the speed run, it is a full magic bar, and if you don't go in with a full magic bar or you miss a shot, you are leaving that dungeon because you are not in a good position anymore. But in this case, in Rando, you do get the Bombos medallion. You can use it to have some magic left over, which lets your fight go much better.
Pooh's sitting at 1 heart on Cold Stair. He's using Master Sword Slashes. I don't know if he has any potions. Now would be a good time to use it, though.
Yeah, Cold Stair, at this point in the vanilla game, the game expects you to have blue mail as it being the dungeon item. So Cold Stair himself does 4 damage, and he might look kind of cute, not very intimidating, but he will hurt you and be very mean to you and make you cry. But in this case, GrandPOOBear clutches it out and gets his pendant. We don't know if there's any use for it, being with the pestle containing an item. But with that said, do we actually know if there's any item on the pestle?
We do not, and here's the interesting thing more than anything. Ice Palace completely in logic, as Pooh showed us. chauncyjay does have the other 2 pendant dungeons done. So whatever we don't have at this point, the pedestal is absolutely in logic. The problem is, we don't have the book. We can't check.
No, you don't need to check. You get all the pendants, and you pull that pedestal. And you cry.
And you usually cry because you wasted like half an hour's worth of time. Oh!
That won't make you cry though, although it will make a lot more enemies cry. The bow in Mimic Cave, as mentioned. So, Turtle Rock looking like the place to be, unfortunately. POOBear making his gamble, not really paying out, but Turtle Rock definitely paying out. So, Jay will have his bow, and now we can complete both Eastern Palace and Palace of Darkness. In Eastern Palace, you only need the bow to get and defeat a few enemies leading up to Armos, which will have the final drop, and of course the crystal. The Palace of Darkness, the right portion of the palace, is actually bow-locked by an Igor, which is also in Eastern Palace, but that will itself directly lock 2 chests. But having the bow, the hammer, and the lantern, all the items in pot are available, all 5 of them, and it is a crystal. So I think the strong play here for Jay becomes going to Eastern and to Palace of Darkness.
Absolutely, routing those 2 together. Pooh looked like he had quite a bit of an advantage, but this is the nature of Rando, folks. Just how quickly you can swing this match with 1 lucky item find, and that bow opens up 2 more crystals. Pooh is going to absolutely have to get up to Turtle Rock at some point in time, unless something is on that pedestal. And that could distract Chauncey at some point, but if nothing's on the pedestal, it might not be a good time for GrandPOOBear.
But do you know what could be on the pedestal?
A lot of stuff can still be on the pedestal. For example, we could be holding onto Flute for the pedestal, which is required for Misery Mire.
That is one thing I was thinking of. They still require the flute in order to get to Misery Mire, and the flute also doubles as a way to get into the Desert Palace. Desert Palace, you need either the flute and a mirror, or you need the book, but Misery Mire will always need the flute, because you need to flute to the location or to lift up the rock, which opens up a Dark World portal. And real quick on Jay's side here, going with Death Warping. Jay opening up this entrance to the overworld will mean that anytime he mirrors or dies, like right here, he'll actually warp to this location. So the laser bridge being a very scary room, a lot of that risk is mitigated in the fact that he will spawn right here.
Yeah, it's a nice safety to do, especially if you aren't necessarily comfortable going through these laser rooms. Now, the laser room we do know is in logic. You need either the Riot Shield, Mirror Shield, which is the 3rd shield upgrade, so all 3 shields would have to be in logic beforehand before you came here, or an invincibility item, the Cape or the Cane of Brian. Since we know the Cane is on that Lake Hylia island and it's in logic, this laser bridge is technically in logic, but he's using some sequence breaky sorts of tricks to get through the laser bridge. It takes another death, unfortunately.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that go into the randomizer, both in routing and execution. We can see that, POOBear with his route, it's not necessarily paying off currently in terms of, Ice Palace and the like. But in terms of execution, little things do add up too. So there is a lot of ebb and flow. Something considers that with execution, the better your execution, the better your input into your output or result will be. So while rando can be, randomized, execution is something that you can always take with you, but it does come with a lot of time and practice. And so both decisions can compensate for one another to a degree, to the degree that it gives you an advantage or edge over your opponent. So having strong execution might mean that, that dip into a dungeon that didn't pay off, gets covered. Or good routing might compensate the fact that, you struggle in a certain area. Both very important and both play a really big role.
So at this point, it looks like Pooh might be heading over here to Palace of Darkness. We might get our first check into pod. Remember, Pooh did try to go in earlier, but Kiki told us, if you can't pay me, I'm not opening the door. So, I have some choice words for that monkey myself.
Yeah, unfortunately, we do know that the bow cannot be in here. It will not be in a vanilla location, unlike the Titan's mitts from earlier. So this will be a double dip from him. Almost triple dip, given that he tried to go here earlier, but effectively a double dip. There is a good chance that there might be something important in here, which might lead GrandPOOBear on a bit of a bunny trail in terms of routing. But, you know, his aversion to Torok, I almost have to wonder if maybe he thinks that he cannot do it this early, because it was opened up so early.
I mean, it's an interesting thought. The thing that GrandPOOBear can absolutely get in pod that would help him at this point in time would be the flute. You know, looking at it with Chauncey having 2 pendant dungeons already done, I don't know if anything being on the pedestal would actually benefit Pooh. But if he finds the flute here, I think he might actually gain some more progression. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I do feel like there is a strong answer within pod itself, but luckily for GrandPOOBear, the first thing he got in the dungeon was a red rupee, not a small key, which means that this dungeon is actually bow locked. You need the bow in order to go through the right side of it. So this here is showing him, no, I should have the bow before I'm able to finish because of the locked door in front, and then the bow not being able to kill the enemies further in. But Jay had a little bit of trouble on Trinex the first time, but by opening that safety door, he actually always gets a full magic refill, which is very handy. Had he not had that, you know, safety entrance, he would be earlier in the dungeon where magic is not necessarily granted.
And here's the problem. This is Jay's second or third try on Trinex. He's going to keep, you know, beating his head against this one. A lot of time being sunk into this Trinex fight. We know that Pooh is going to eventually have to get over into this area simply in order to get the bow, because he can't do anything at this point in time. This seems to be the logical progression. You go up to Turtle Rock, get the bow, then come back down and unlock everything that you have in Palace of Darkness in Eastern Palace. The unfortunate thing is Jay has his progression, but the longer he spends on this Trinex fight, the longer he's going to lose the advantage that he currently has.
Yeah, and to go along with that, with POOBear having finished Ice Palace, he knows there's nothing there for him, so that's just not on the table anymore. But it looks like he's currently making his way to Turtle Rock, which is a very good decision for him. So like you're saying, the advantage Jay has is constantly getting eaten up here the longer it takes to defeat Trinex. Trinex does seem like, you know, kind of the goal here, and especially because it's a crystal, you really want to get it done. You have the bow, but it is a crystal dungeon. But Trinex is a very tricky fight as well. Looks like Jay is really contemplating on, you know, staying here or going, which I don't blame him. Again, it's a very tricky fight, and if you miss your magic shots and you miss your hits, it's going to be even more difficult. Only having the Master Sword means that if you want to get large amounts of damage, you use the hammer. The hammer is trickier to use, so all in all, a lot of things compounding here at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, this is not an easy fight for either of these runners. I don't know how confident Pooh is in doing Master Sword Hammer Trinex. The difference is, I do know that Pooh does have that blue potion that we saw and he saved from that Cold Stare fight, which really is going to be the difference. Chauncey did have to burn that pretty early, unfortunately, in that horrible, horrible Chain Chomp room. So, again, this is Chauncey's third or fourth time. He, you know, credit to him. He's not giving up. He's going to keep trying.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult position to be in because you only have so many magic shots. Again, the hammer, you know, doing a lot more damage. If you're able to do some menuing and whatnot to the hammer, it makes it simpler. But in this case, if Jay is not able to clutch us out, he may be better spent in leaving the dungeon and come back later, because the more time you spend here could have been the time that you'd have spent leaving and coming back. And this is that too. He had the blue potion but used it on the chomp, so sometimes you may be tempted to use some of your resources, but you also need to be very much aware of how those will factor in later. And yeah, it does look like Jay is, you know, unfortunately going to leave, which I do think in this case is the right decision. You want to kind of, you know, cut your losses as you're able to.
Yeah, I mean, this is really tough on chauncyjay. I think he made the realization that if I don't leave now, I could spend all afternoon on this, just having Master Sword on itself, it's not an easy fight, no matter what kind of setup or situation you have. So chauncyjay biting the bullet, going ahead and leaving, I think is the better move for him overall. It does mean he's going to have to eventually come back and beat Trinex, and if our next logic, if Palace of Darkness has nothing, and our next progression is actually somewhere else, I mean, it's gonna, well, it's gotta be here, doesn't it?
Do you feel that Palace of Darkness is likely our answer here? But yeah, in the case of chauncyjay here, he was very close. But a lot of it is also mental. You don't want to just waste your time on the fight and, you know, struggle and whatnot. It plays into your mental game. Mental game is really huge at this too. You don't know where your opponent is. You're kind of shooting in the dark a lot. You know, it's easy to think, oh, my opponent did it perfectly and I'm wasting all this time and blah, 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 blah. The idea is that you play your game, you do your best, and then, you know, you kind of regroup and, you know, try to, you know, reroute things together. He will get to, you know, he does have the option, provided that there's nothing at Pyramid Fairy and nothing on Trinex, to leave it as his last dungeon and then pair it with the trip up to Ganon Tower. So there are, you know, still ways he can compensate and do good here. And having the bow, yeah, he might find a lot of worth in Pod that will lead him on, you know, the rest of his way here.
Oh no, and Pooh is doing the same thing, using that potion. He got scared. Oh, this is where realizing that you have the powder, and if you just can get through this room, you have some anti-fairies to help you out. Now, Pooh will see how his Trinex fight does, or if he leaves pretty quickly. This could be a game differentiator, so that advantage that he had with the potion, gone now.
Yeah, this is where it gets exciting, when you see two races in a very similar position, but then they each have to deal with it in their own way. Just like when you see two races going through the same dungeon at the same time. You know, these little things do make it very entertaining for us, you know, perhaps to the eye of the runners at times, but again, he is now in the same position, so we will get to see how POOBear interacts in this dungeon and carries himself through it, even unto the boss and the boss fight itself.
Struggling a little bit here with the pokey. I wonder if he realizes that, oh, now he realizes fire burns those pokies down.
Burn them. Burn them.
Burninate them!
They can be very annoying. They do a lot of damage too.
If I have anything Master Sword or lower, I switch right to the Fire Rod if I absolutely can. Getting those spin strats on the pokies can be a little bit difficult with Master Sword or Fighter Sword. Just burn them.
Yeah, you could try to use the Ice Rod, but you'll get not as good results. The Fire Rod and Ice Rod, even though the Fire Rod is much more prominent for people, they do have typically the same application in every place. You can use the Fire Rod on Argus, or the Ice Rod on Argus, or in other fights to do damage. The Ice Rod itself can outright kill a lot of enemies if it doesn't freeze them, so they do have a lot of use there. But yeah, Fire Rod, very handy for an enemy that is tanky and hurts a lot.
Alright, so we blinked and chauncyjay went ahead and cleared out the Eastern Palace for us, so that's another crystal. We have 3 crystals to 2 at this point in time. If anything's on the pedestal, we have GrandPOOBear with 1 pendant and chauncyjay with 2. Different dungeons though, so very different sets of circumstances with that.
Yeah, there's still a lot to this race left, so it, you know, with the way it goes, there's still a lot of potential. You know, Jay choosing to use a very standard Armo strat there for the quick kill. There are a few different things you can do in that fight, and some are quicker, some, you know, are safer, and so he chose the more standard route here. And GrandPOOBear finding his bow, he'll be very happy with that. So even if nothing else in this dungeon, you know, he'll have a clear indication of where he should go in the future. And knowing that, you know, Pod is bow locked, you know, now it's no longer an issue. You can go to Pod and, you know, just have a great time.
Yeehaw! Pod is just a grand old... Okay, I'm going to stop that voice is annoying.
But Pod as a dungeon is also very front-loaded in keys here. So a lot of this, while it, you know, it's very confusing to look at, especially as a newer player, but a lot of these front chests are trying to get, you know, keys and ways to go through. And typically the back of the dungeon will be much more item heavy. But here, you know,
oh no!
Oh no.
Poe used all of his magic.
That was a great bonk, though. That was a very good presence of mind thing to bonk against the wall to try and get over the roller pit. But yeah, unfortunately, in order to get further from here, not only hit the switch, you need magic to activate the Canis Samaria platform. So, you know, Pooh Bear getting through this room successfully will come into a little bit of issue right here.
Oh, it's great because I mean Pooh is very you know, I don't know if you guys know this. Pooh is a little bit internet famous. He is very well known for being a Mario speedrunner. I think he also holds a world record for the Jaws video game. He is one of the top speedrunners kind of that are out there in the Mario community. It's interesting to see him get to this particular point and then, you know, stop and think and realize, oh, that wasn't a good thing.
He's going to an area that is one of the first areas I learned about when I got started because of a bingo where you needed to find rupee runes, but no magic. This is a very difficult spot to try and look for magic. This is kind of where I was mentioning about the safety door for Jay. He has that guaranteed magic drop, but in Turtle Rock, with the exception of the prize packs, it's much more wanting. As Jay finds a full magic decanter right there, you know, figures, of course. Pooh Bear does find a little bit of magic here, which, you know, should be enough to get him by. It's not a great position to be in. And even then, he does have the bow. The bow is an important thing to get here. So having the bow will be very handy. And of course, we're learning these darn pokies. This is fire on them. Crap. Let's hammer them.
Oh, this is a special thing to observe right here.
Yeah, it happens to all players, you know. Again, it's part of learning the game. Little things happen. But the great thing about it is not only does it force you to learn, you know, some different strategies, you know, it lists some creativity, but as a viewer, you get to watch how another person goes through it. So while it can be really annoying, and as a player, you might introspect like, oh, like I'm doing really terrible, or, you know, people are watching me. It's very endearing to see someone's vulnerable side and to see, you know, just kind of the journey that these players take. And, you know, I think that's a great part of the community is you get to watch people really grow and improve. And this is a testament to not only their character, but the nature of the game and the community itself.
Aw, that was very well put.
Thank you.
All right, so Pooh finally has his magic.
Yeah, has his magic, and there actually is another magic refill in this room, but the important thing is that he gets through and tries to, you know, if he gets a safety door or takes that little detour right there would lead to magic, but the fact that there is magic further in makes it not as necessary. But the important thing will be for him to get a safety door, and then you know he will have the Trinex still to deal with, but he will be able to, you know, take that take that challenge on its own, using the hook shot to use the invulnerability of the hook to not take damage from the firebars. You know, very good presence of mind there to save a little bit of health.
Here's the interesting thing. I don't know if I've actually seen Chauncey pick up our next... That was a weird fall. Our next progression, which really would be either one of the fetch quests or the flute. Like, this has been a bit of a bust, all things considered. He's full clearing this, but nothing is here.
Yeah, he does, of course, need the crystal, so it's still progressing, but not finding the items you want. These players are very close to having everything they need, but it's still eluding them just a small bit. And of course, you know, Pooh Bear, you know, very smartly taking the safety door, no longer an issue, and finds the key to get into Trinex. One chest left in the dungeon, you know, to have a thorough, full clear, and then he will be able to write this off and, you know, just consider it done.
And Pooh learning right now how annoying these red dudes can be.
Yeah, the hard hat beetles are very annoying. Even just the times they move, different enemies, you know, with frame rolls and whatnot, the hard hats, you know, from the time they start moving is RNG too. So they're just a very annoying and unpredictable enemy that the developers put there very, you know, lovingly, but yeah,
it's like
very,
they
very
wanted to be annoying to us or something.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they didn't just put the Triforce in Hyrule Castle, right? You kind of have to go on a little bit of a rigmarole. But, you know, here we are. GrandPOOBear going into Trinex. chauncyjay already at Helmasaur. Helmasaur, his mask, you need to break the mask first in order to, you know, reveal the jewel behind that you are able to attack. And the first, it's 17 hits, 1 hit to initiate, 6 hits for, you know, to get to the right crack, and then another 6 hits in order to fully break the mask. And very nice fight from Jay there. Helmasaur is down.
All right, Pooh is starting off with Master Sword strats as well. He's gonna have to be a little bit careful, make sure that he can conserve his magic. A single missed shot, I think, at this point is just doom.
Yeah, a single missed shot is really bad. The big thing to this fight is patience. You need to be very patient. Those heads can dart and weave very quickly, which can make it really annoying to shoot, as you're able to see here. The big thing to do, if you're really in a bind, is to wait until that head is going to do its attack, as it's taking a very long time for it. But that is the danger of Trinex.
All right, so he'll take a Death Warp back to the beginning, get some heart refills. Gonna try again. We'll see if he does his hammer strats here, or if he continues to do what Chauncey tried a little bit earlier. And
yeah, and speaking of Chauncey.
Yeah, Chauncey looks like he's going... Where are you going, Chauncey?
I do believe he's going to an Ice Palace, because I think at this point the runners are becoming convinced that it may be a pesticide.
Well, I think Chauncey might think the flute or the next progression is going to be an Ice Palace, although we know it's not. We've checked everything. At this point in time, what's our pedestal hype index at this point?
I think it's primarily the flute, or, you know, a book in order to get into desert, where the flute may be. Something along those lines. There are, I believe, still a few more locations they haven't checked, but those are kind of the prime targets currently. I do believe it also could be a medallion, if Ministry Meyer is not Bombos. This is, of course, barring an item being on Trinex and a few other locations, too.
What kind of troll would this seed be? You know what, I would make me feel a little bit better myself.
Ooh, yeah, hey, POOBear waited for the head. Unfortunately missed that shot, but actually did switch to the hammer. Again, when you open up the start menu, you waste real time, but you don't waste in-game time. So, you know, kind of like what you were mentioning with Argus and, you know, the menu boss with Fighter Sword, you're able to go to the start menu, pull out the hammer, do a hammer shot, and then switch as necessary. So even just using pause buffers, you can make use of that fight. And it looks like POOBear is very much determined. You know, a little bit of trouble in the first attempt. Second attempt, he, you know, did much, much better. I think this third attempt, he probably has it. I could definitely see him, you know, pulling all the knowledge together and, you know, gonna give Trinex the wet 4.
It would be absolutely amazing, because this game doesn't necessarily take your skill as a runner or how many hearts you have. If it's technically possible to kill a boss, and in this case, Trinex absolutely is technically killable, the game will expect you to go ahead and do it. So progression is here on Trinex, this is our bottleneck, where, hey, deal with it sort of thing. And it's not on the pedestal. What? I mean, we'll find out here soon with Pooh, won't we?
Yeah. Never give up, never surrender. And, you know, so POOBear taking it to Trinex right now, using the hammer, taking out that head, over half magic. He's got us in the bag, I believe. Get hype in chat. As chauncyjay goes through Ice Palace, and we'll start to see our runners, you know, begin to sync up a little bit as things go on. chauncyjay not opting for the bomb jump here, going through the dungeon, but, you know, it might in fact be necessary for the pedestal, but very exciting here on POOBear's screen, as he is very low in health, doing good in the fight, but takes a hit.
I think he knows exactly what he has to do, and at this point he's, you know, if you're Pooh at this point, you keep on going.
Yeah, no, he's got it. He's got in the bag. Not a problem. Easy every time. He's gonna get his first try when he, you know, goes back in. He's very close, very close.
My goodness. I mean, this is I mean, at this point, there's only a couple places where this could absolutely be, and Pooh, being even more heads up here, using his powder to go ahead and turn these anti-fairies into a heart. Yeah, this is
ready.
Maximum Pooh hype at this point.
Are you ready, Tranex? Don't even know what Pooh Bear is about to do. He even filled his health.
I'd be curious if he lets out a scream after this particular.
1, 2, 3. Hammer. Ice Rod. Hammer. Hammer. You're down.
Yeah, that's a very smooth.
Switch into the next head.
Yep.
Shot. Hammer. Hammer. Not quite so much there. It's a little difficult. The knockback makes it a tighter window to do. He's got it. He's got it.
Yeah, it feels good. Feels good right now for Pooh. You can do it, man.
Yeah,
all right, phase 3.
Oh, dodges that strike, Tranex. It's not out of the woods yet, but that is typically the more difficult part. But he's got this.
More than that, he did it with a clean floor. There's no ice on the floor. He'll have maximum dodge through here.
That's very true. Still have to be very careful. When Tranex first appears, his head is actually vulnerable, not the center, which is why the sword whiff. But body got him easy. First try, PogChamp. Let's go.
GG, Pooh Bear. Let's see. Is this where our progression
What
is?
Our item? Exactly. It's a heart piece. It's okay. Walk it off. Got him. Not a problem. We don't even care. It wasn't about the heart piece. Could have been single rupee. All good.
Oh no! Oh my goodness! So the one treasure chest in Ice Palace that GrandPOOBear didn't open, chauncyjay just opened, and it was the tempered sword.
That is a very nice thing to get. That means there's only one more sword for GrandPOOBear. Without silver arrows, Ganon is very dangerous. Yeah, just to quickly go over, Ganon has 4 phases. The first phase, it's also based on your sword, how many hits you need to do in each phase. So with Master Sword, kind of like what we saw earlier with Fighter on Argus and the like, Master Sword will not actually do any damage to Ganon in terms of a swing. You need to do a charged spin, which does temper damage. In order to beat the first phase of Ganon, you need to do 12 strikes. So in order to land that strike, you need to do a charged spin of the Master or a normal slash of the temper. So obviously, the temper is much simpler and much quicker in order to get those slashes. So temper as a sword upgrade is a huge time boon to get in that fight, because not only do you have to do 12 in the first phase, you have to do another 12 hits on the second phase, and then on the third phase it's 4, and then on the fourth phase it depends on whether you have silver arrows or not. We can leave that part for a little bit later, but having that temper is a huge boon. As you see, chauncyjay just kind of melts Argus, making great use of that weapon.
Yeah, and here's the difficult part here for Pooh, is that he's going to go in here, he's going to go to Palace of Darkness. We know he's not going to find anything in Palace of Darkness. He's not going to find anything in Eastern. At that point in time, the only thing we can do is have him go ahead and Skullwoods and Thievestown, which we know there's not going to be anything in. Right now, chauncyjay at 1 hour and 41 minutes is on his way over to the pedestal.
Are you hyped though?
I'm hyped. Are you hyped?
I'm pretty hyped. Are you hyped, chat? Are you ready?
Now, this is probably, this was a cutscene that was pretty impressive back in the early 90s. Lights are flashing, music is playing, pendants are floating up into the air. Of course, it's not necessarily anything worth today, but still get a lot of nostalgia about that. So what's going to be on the ped? It feels like it has to be the flute.
I don't think you're hype enough.
Come on, chat. You can be hyper.
No, it's really fun. Sometimes, people like Pestle. Sometimes they don't. I think especially if you make a pennant gamble or you're a little bit behind, you're like, oh, I really hope it's a, you know, I hope it's a pennant seed or a pestle seed. Oh, well, I mean both, but in this case, pedestal. Will it be what we're looking for?
All right,
Dramatic
epic music,
buildup.
sparkles flowing. Here we go. What is it, chauncyjay? It's Quake.
Quake.
Wah, 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 wah.
Yeah, GrandPOOBear making his way through Eastern. These enemies you need the bow in order to kill. You can skip them, but it's really the room coming up next where you do need the bow in order to beat it. Other weapons will not hurt it.
So, what'd we miss?
Did they check, no, I think they checked King's Tomb. They didn't check Spike Cave, though, which, I don't think they did. Oh no, it's been a while.
No, yeah, I mean, Spike Cave might be the possibility at this point in time. Let's see, what else could... I mean, in order to get Spike Cave, you're going to have to go down and do... get the Cane of Burna. I mean, just for safety's sake.
Yeah, the Cane of Burna was there very early, a nice safety, and it, you know, is technically part of the logic as we understand it. So, you know, a lot of these low locations are probably going to start a trade, but it's really funneling down. There are not too many more places it can be.
Oh my goodness. I mean, we haven't been to Misery Mire yet, so we still don't know for sure if Quake isn't required. So it still could be a PED required seed. We pulled it. I'm sure Chauncey's really confused right now. He's going to go back up to Turtle Rock now, get that one done. It's not going to benefit him, though.
Yeah, of course, in his mind, he's probably thinking, well, I just blind pull the pestle. It might not be worthwhile. Haven't killed Trenex. It's probably where I need to go. So, you know, making the climb back. But considering, you know, how few locations there are here, it completely makes sense. And having the temper, you know, I think he's going to give Trenex the wet 4 too. So we can definitely get hype for him here. Meanwhile, POOBear making his way through Pod.
More importantly, you know, the one thing, chauncyjay has still not checked Agina's cave over in the desert, which is where the boots are located.
Yeah, it's a little bit surprising too with you know, everything that's been on the table so far, but it hasn't really, you know, with the exception of the raw time, you know, the boots haven't shown themselves to be required, but where they might still be required is if in desert you need the boots in order to get the torch item. There's a chance that there may not be a necessary key on that torch, but if there is, then the boots are required. There's also in Ganon Tower one location out of 22 that do require the boots in order to get. So we don't actually know if the boots are necessary, but on their own, they are still a very good item to have.
All right, so we're running over some different locations here. GrandPOOBear is going through Palace of Darkness, which we know won't have an item. chauncyjay is going to be making his way back and gets blueberried off.
It's unfortunate. Yeah, those jellies, it's a little bit of a gamble. You can tank a damage from them, but if you hit it, if you're in transit on the platform and you strike them while it's electrified, you will fall. If you take a normal hit, you will not fall, but if your platform is still and you take a hit, you will fall. So it can be a little bit scary, especially when you get to the end of the platform. You're like, do I slash or do I not slash? And then, you know, when you fall, never lucky.
Absolutely. So let's take a quick second and give a shout out to some of the folks who helped make Speed Gaming go. Thank you so much to Evan Gorar, our tracker, for helping us keep track of all these items. I promise you guys, we would be absolutely lost without Evan Gorar and the other tracker teams that help keep track of things for us as we're going through here. Also want to give a shout out to our runners, chauncyjay and GrandPOOBear. Guys, if you like what you're seeing from these guys, go ahead and give them a follow or a sub over here on Twitch. It's the easiest way to support the runners. Also want to give a shout out, of course, to our Speed Gaming Network. If you like what you're seeing here with Legend of Zelda Randomizer. We have lots of other speed races and runs that we do. Give us a follow here. We have Speed Gaming 1 through 6, all those channels. We also have ALTTP Randomizer 1 through 4. We are in the middle of our round 2 of our spring tournament. There are 256 matches a week being scheduled, and we're trying to do our best to make as many of them come to you guys live as possible. Go ahead and follow us there if you like seeing Rando. It's absolutely hype. Thank you guys so much. And without the audience, you guys, you guys make it all worthwhile. Thank you guys so much. You the real champs.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people come together to make this possible, and it's out of love for, a common hobby, a game that we all enjoy. But, Vatasia, do you know what time it is?
Is it time for Trinex round 8?
This is the next time. Trinex? This is the next time. We're going to take it to Trinex.
This is the revenge of chauncyjay.
chauncyjay enters the arena. 2 in the arena. Only 1 shall leave.
Well, that's not necessarily true, because if he happens to mirror out, then 2 would absolutely leave. But
yeah, and there is the wrong sound. So on to the final phase of Trinex.
Yeah, this is a much easier fight than either of these guys had the first time around.
Yeah, gets the charge spin off at the very beginning. Tons of damage very early on. Trinex down. Easy. First try, PogChamp. Let's go. Show your love for chauncyjay. That is not a fun fight. And took it to him very well here. Gets his piece of heart too.
So Chauncey's got to be wondering, okay, what did I do? Because he's missing several key items here. He's missing the boots, which we know is in Igina's cave. We're missing the flute, which unlocks at this point both Misery Mire and Desert Palace, as far as we know. We're just kind of lost, for lack of a better term, aren't we?
We might be lost, but I don't think chauncyjay is lost. Where is he going? Probably Spike Cave. Let's go.
All right, this is going to be our first peek into Spike Cave. It is in Logic. He does not have the item per se to make it super, super easy for him, but he certainly has the hearts. He won't necessarily have to. He'll be able to save and quit.
Yeah, absolutely. Try to use the hook shot to invuln past the Grandma Centaur's shot there. They are also an enemy that take no damage to the Master Sword, but the Temper does do damage, so you can use the hammer if you don't happen to have it. But yeah, the Spike Room here, the spikes do 1 heart of damage, so the damage can add up very quickly. Male does not matter here, but considering how much health chauncyjay has, he is able to tank all the damages, use the hook shot to get through the room quickly, and we find our butt!
Look, oh no! So, this opens up not what we wanted.
We can check the pedestal, PogChamp.
We can check the pedestal. Oh my god. While we're over here in the Death Mountain area, we can check the Ether tablet, see what's on there. We can check the Bombos tablet. And then we can go ahead and open up Desert. We can go ahead and full clear Desert. We will have everything necessary to clear it. So we're hoping to find the flute at some point. Remember, the flute is our only way into Misery Mire. So we'll be able to go mode once we get there, but it seems like this seed is really kind of dragging us along here.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because, again, we saw that very early on, and even had the items to get very early on. So just the way the siege would have gone, had some different decisions would have been made. It's really part of the beauty of Randomizer. 2 racers enter, 2 completely different routes leave, potentially. But chauncyjay going to go to this northern tablet here to check. And yeah, flute is definitely a big item. But with that book alone, like you said, we can now enter Desert Palace. And if we can enter Desert Palace, and it's not necessarily boots lock for chauncyjay, that also opens up Pyramid Fairy. But here we find our red boomerang. So a little bit of a different color than the one we were hoping for.
Yeah, the red boomerang, anything with sparkles in this game, whenever you're holding it out, will lag the game a little bit. So the red boomerang, of course, Cane of Burna. That's what causes the lag. For that very reason, lagging the game, a lot of runners actually prefer to use the blue boomerang. It has a little bit more control with it, and it doesn't lag the game quite so much. So,
yeah, both boomerangs have their niche use, different strategies for them. But like you said, generally speaking, it won't attribute much to the lag of the game. So it is preferred, if only for that reason alone.
All right, Pooh. Where's Pooh going?
He's going on an adventure. And that adventure direction is to Shovel Game. Because last time he had the purple chest. He was not able to do this. And he's currently looking for a shovel, but the game actually gives you a shovel. Or you can use your mallet. Your mallet makes a suitable shovel, clearly, too. And on the bottom of the tablet, we have our flute.
So Chauncey's going to nope out of there. Ladies and gentlemen, chauncyjay is officially in what we here at Randomizer like to call Go mode.
Yeah, he is in Go mode, barring one small exception. If the Ganon Tower Big Key is on the torch, then boots are required. And it should also be noted that while it is required in the logic to have silver arrows, Ganon can be defeated without silver arrows, and we currently do not have silver arrows.
It is also worth pointing out that, you know, it's also quite likely that Desert Palace could be boots locked. So we know where everything is, and we may assume that Chauncey is doing everything he can. He is probably going to dive into Misery Mire, go headlong into it, clear it out as quickly as he can. He may, if he does his routing properly, he'd do Desert first to see if it's boots lock. Then he can go ahead and not go mode Misery Mire and full clear it and check the other chests.
Yeah, and during that time, chauncyjay is activating his flute, which is a endearing part of the run. Many consider it the quote-unquote national anthem of Randomizer. But having activated the flute, chauncyjay is now going to Mire and confirms it is Quake. So pedestal required.
I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit excited. In all my years, I say years, in all the runs that I've commentated, I've only seen two pedestal. Well, this is my second pedestal required seed, so I'm a little bit happy about that. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it was definitely really good. And I suppose as chauncyjay makes his way through Mire and GrandPOOBear makes his way to finish through Thieves, which we do know now is required. When you first activate the bird in Kakariko, there's that little cutscene that plays. Ideally, if you can, you want to stand to the left of the statue so that the bird will get off screen sooner. But even perhaps more applicable to Rando, when you first activate the bird, there is a delay on when the bird will come. I believe it's about 6 seconds. But if you have the boots, you can do an item dash with the boots that will cancel that, and the bird will be called immediately. It's only when you first activate the flute that there is that about 6-second delay. But if you have the boots, it is one of those small time savers. But chauncyjay here in Mire has 2 items, but of course we know that really all he wants is the boots at this point and silver arrows. With 1 item down, there's only 1 more in Mire.
Absolutely. So Chauncey is absolutely, I think he's going to be looking for boots. I really, really sincerely think so, because you don't know at this point. And really, go mode and not go mode Misery Mire and Desert Palace are both pretty quick, all things said. I mean, there's not a huge time difference like there is, say, Ice Palace or Swamp Palace. So he'll be checking everything. He's already routing things together at this point in time. If he picks up his second item and the big key, then he'll just he'll clear it out super fast and do Vitreous.
Yeah, his route at this point is much more clear. Again, the boots are a small potential wrench into the situation. But it should be noted that, again, while POOBear did get the boots so early, and it does seem like such a strong advantage, we can see how while he did get them early, chauncyjay is currently leading in the race. So again, routing, execution, a bunch of little things, they really do count together, and that's why you cannot count anyone out at any point to a certain extent.
I mean, it was absolutely a back and forth race at certain points in time. Pooh, with the boots advantage, was keeping a solid lead. He made the right dips as he needed to, but chauncyjay going ahead and getting that spike cave, man, is had the breadcrumb, and we've had access to it for quite a while.
Yeah, it can be hard when you have so many things available to you. Again, that might be that one, quote-unquote troll location that just kind of got neglected. It's easy to see as a viewer, like, oh, well, go there. Like, it should have been apparent, but as a racer, it's very different. And as racers, these two have been very good. This has been a very fun and interesting race thus far, and it's still far from over. With GrandPOOBear picking up his pennant there, it's well on the way. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, it looks like he might actually opt to trade it in right away. He did not go straight up to Skullwoods, but we'll see where he goes.
Yeah.
He is indeed heading eastern. Actually, I suppose that's one small thing I was always curious on. You have Eastern Palace, but then Desert is Desert, not Western. And then Hera is not Northern. A little bit curious, but...
So you're saying we need to have more cardinal direction dungeons?
Well, I'm saying, why didn't they name it Desert Bird Palace? Or, Cowboy Hat Szechuan Dude Palace? I don't know.
Statue Palace, because it's nothing but statues coming to life and crushing you.
Yeah, definitely. But POOBear trades his pen in, finds that it is not the item he's looking for. He'll have to try another palace. In this case, it's more like woods. Yeah, so chauncyjay here, making it through Mire. Mire is an interesting dungeon, very curious layout to it, but this Vitreous fight can be very intimidating and tricky. A lot of people love to have arrows, and specifically silver arrows for it. But with the Tempered Sword, you can actually go into this slime here and tank 1 heart of damage. The eyeballs, I believe, do about 3. I want to say they do 3 or 4. But if you go into the slime, you can gain invulnerability, only taking 1 heart of damage, which lets you charge your sword into a spin. And you can see that chauncyjay was going for that type of strategy. So the temper really playing a role here.
And I hate to say it, but I think Pooh is a little bit lost at this point in time, right around the 2-hour mark.
I'm just searching for honey in the woods, not a big deal. He'll be fine. Heading to Skullwoods here.
Don't know if he's that kind of bear. He seems more like... It's true. He seems more like the picnic basket kind of GrandPOOBear than say eat honey in the woods bear.
Oh bother! But yeah, chauncyjay going to desert, checks the ledge, finds Cape, contemplates Cape. No Cape. Yes, Cape. We'll get Cape. chauncyjay gets Cape, and now he's on his way to Desert Palace. Still no boots, but we'll very quickly find out if it's boots locked.
Yeah, this is going to be a very quick check. Really only 2 item locations that you really have to check. If the big key is on the torch there, we will know immediately that this whole seat is going to be boot locked.
And it is boot locked. There is the big key. chauncyjay contemplating life. Yes, there is the big key. Let's try and bomb it. I agree.
He is not happy.
No. Boots.
All right, so Chauncey is going over here. He's going to check to see what's... I mean, this might be a small key, I think, at this point. Or it could be something else. Oh, that's salt in the wound right there.
Yeah, the dungeon is very much boots locked. So chauncyjay now thinking, oh bother, where do I go now? has to ponder, but we know that it's not very far removed from him where he needs to go.
So he's going to check the Mire Shed. He's going to go over here and check Checkerboard Cave. The question I really have is, does he remember he never did Agina? Oh no, it's a fetch quest!
Yeah, it's Agina is one of those locations that's difficult, easy to forget, but having the Shovel of Hope, I think chauncyjay is thinking that he might have found the ticket. At least a little surprise there, a la Indiana, Jones style, but.
So he's going to check Checkerboard Cave. Oh, not going to find what he's hoping to see here.
No, nope. He'll find 10 arrows. Arrows are not progressive, so getting those 10 will not lead to silver. But
and he's making the play!
The 200 IQ route, mirroring going to Agina Cave. He will find his boots, and then, well, we may find more bombs.
Chat, get your guesses in right now. Is he going to bomb it? Is he going to bombose it? What's he going to do?
Well, that's just mean. But I like it. Finds his boots, pulls the chest, bonks the wall, dashes out.
Oh, and one more bomb. Oh my god, we are in go mode at 2 hours and 3 minutes. The plus side is neither of these runners have seen the other one complete it yet. They can't see each other run, but they can at least see if someone completes it. So they know this seed has really yanked them all the way around.
Yeah, definitely. POOBear finishes Skullwoods, and with the mirror, he'll be able to do his pull. He'll find Quake, which probably isn't what he's hoping for, but little does he know that it actually is necessary. So this is good for him, even if it gives him feelings of ire. But chauncyjay, again, in go mode, going through. He wasn't able to get the quick warp on the Dark World entry there. For those that may not be aware, depending on your camera position, how you enter a warp between dark and light worlds will actually make it, it'll warp you a little bit quicker or slower. Ideally, you get what is called a quick warp, which is where, depending on how you enter the portal, you'll actually save about 30 frames on that teleport. It changes for the different portals, so I can't really go over them too much at the moment, but unfortunately, Jay was not able to get it.
All right, so GrandPOOBear does pull the pedestal, gets Quake, thinking, that's not what I was expecting.
No, most certainly, but it's definitely something he will want.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping he remembers that Spike Cave is a thing. I was watching one of his streams. I think it was, early when he first started practicing Randomizer, and asking for his chat for suggestions and helping route him around and hoping to learn the game. And I know that he had no idea what Spike Cave was then. I hope he has learned between then and now. I don't know if he has, though.
Yeah, definitely. Again, big thing about these is that everyone you do, you learn, and there's always that race that you'll be thinking, good, on top of the world, everything's lovely, and then it's like, oh, right, hammer pig. And then it just does not feel nearly as good, but everyone kind of takes their licks, they kind of go through, and that's, kind of what makes you a random player. chauncyjay on the fight here, making great use of the Fire Rod. Again, Fire Rod or Ice Rod will only take 2 hits to take out Lanmola. If you're going by Fighter Sword, it takes 8 Fighter Sword slashes, or 4 arrow shots, or 2 Fire or Ice Rod shots, or if you happen to have them, 1 Silver Arrow shot. In this case, great use of the Fire Rod from Chauncey, making use of what he already possesses in his arsenal.
All right, ladies and gentlemen in the Randomizer community, chauncyjay does have all 7 crystals. He is on his way up to Ganon's Tower. It is time for everyone's favorite game that we play here in the Randomizer community, the Ganon's Tower Big Key Guessing Game. If you are a subscriber to any of the Speed Gaming Network channels or have donated at least 250 bits, you are eligible for our leaderboard. Chat's already going crazy with this. There are 22 treasure chests in Ganon's Tower that could possibly hold the Ganon's Tower Big Key. 1 through 22. Get your guesses in chat. Ma'am, what's going to be your guess?
So, I don't normally go for 22, but regarding the number 22, there are a couple of schools of thought. One is simply just troll the runners by having them go through, you know, the entire thing only for it to be tile room, which is usually where most people will make their last check. Or if you really like and want things to be purely execution, you can also go 22. In this case, I'm going to say 22 because these races have been providing a lot of entertainment. They've been doing a great job, and I want to see how they handle the tower. What do you guys think? Also, what is your guess?
I have traditionally stuck with the same number because I'm a stick in the mud, and if I guess the same number, eventually I'm going to be right. So I'm going to stick with guess number 8. If that is traditional routing, that's going to put it right around the firebar room. But I don't know chauncyjay's routing decisions at this point in time, so I'm not entirely sure what that's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. Typically, people will leave tile room as number 22. I just want to see them go all over. They could go to tile room right away. I'll get hype. But I just want to see a lot of the tower.
And Pooh is making the play on Spike Cave, so this is the play we know he needs to make.
This is huge for him. Definitely. You can see that the invulnerability is really playing to his favor. chauncyjay did not have boots at the time, but with the Cane of Burna, you're able to be invulnerable through the Spike Cave and make use of the boots to dash. So he got through that room much more quickly. And again, if you are using magic invulnerability for a longer period than shorter, you want to use the Cane of Burna, but the Cane of Burna can add lag. So there are strategies to both. But yes, chauncyjay entering the room here, going right side. First chest, a key. Second chest, money. And he's going to mirror and go left.
Yeah, this is a pretty standard route. Check the first 2 chests and then come over here. I can imagine he might have even checked this one first if for whatever reason we didn't need the boots. And picking up that fire shield, that's actually not a bad pickup given all the fireballs that get thrown at your face.
No, most certainly. Not only does it match your armor and sword, which is obviously the most important part, but it does block out magical attacks, not lasers. But the first shield will block out projectiles, the second shield will block out magic, like fireballs. The third shield, the mirror shield, will block out lasers. So it is certainly a nice shield to find, and there's our key.
Absolutely. That's what, the 4th? I mean, it was quick. What is this?
I'm heated.
I'm really kind of a little bit heated, and I think our bots are actually down. Oops. But whoever gets 4, you still win. You still win our love and affection.
I'm heated.
I can tell you're a little bit upset about this. I mean, I'm sure the runners are perfectly happy about this because, you know, they can jump right in.
Bots down, kills by then.
Oh, the bot's down. Okay.
But yeah, so chauncyjay going through the tower here, having the key, all he has to do is make his way through the top. This is a very much just pure execution going in through here. There's a lot of strategies, a lot of things you can do, and this tower can be very daunting. This cannonball room alone has at least 4 different RNG patterns, so, you know, dashing through it can be really difficult, and, you know, taking a little bit of invulnerability there, it did allow him to dash through, and he's now what colloquially is referred to as the gauntlet. There are 5 rooms here, all very tricky. The game kind of throws a little combination of everything at you, and lots of RNG, lots of variants. As you can tell by the, you know, the dangerous spiky things in the center of the BMO's conveyor belt, that was a good one. Oh, but let's add ice.
Yeah, why not add a little bit of ice with our conveyors, and then we're going to add ice with conveyors, and by the way, laser beams!
I just like the progressive thought there. It's like, okay, now we're going to add ice, and the player's like, okay, cool, thanks developers, they add ice, but now, more ice!
It's like, really, I mean, who does that? What developer had a few too many, came back from lunch, maybe tipped a few back and said, you know what would make this great? More ice.
Yeah, pretty much. This is kind of funny because you're like, oh my goodness, like, it can't get any worse than, you know, well, not that it can't get any worse, but like what now? It's more ice.
All right, so Pooh actually picks up half magic. That's a pretty nice pickup, considering what else he has to do. Chauncey is going to have to be a little bit conservative with his magic use as he's climbing this Ganon's tower. It looks like Chauncey does at least have one blue potion, which will be nice, but otherwise he's in red mail. He's got, what, 16 hearts? He's equipped for this.
Yeah, and Chauncey making great use of the Cane of Samari in the room it was designed for, able to take out all those reserves in one fell swoop. Definitely, you know, great strategy to have, and, you know, just visually impressive too. But yeah, half magic for POOBear is very good here. Without silver arrows, the Ganon fight, the Phase 4, will require 12 strikes with tempered or master. Well, with master it's 24, but you'll have to do 12 strikes. And if you, and yeah, during the time the phase will go dark, so you need to light the torches in order to actually strike Ganon. So that obviously will consume a lot of magic. So getting more magic is a huge boon. So far, still no silver arrows. We found our other medallion, Screw Attack, but yet no silver arrows.
So, no silver arrows. He hasn't checked anything at this point in time.
No silver arrows, and he skips the chest. Very brave by him. Checking where we are at the end of the tower. I'm excited. Are you excited? We're almost up top. Just a room or two to go. Moldarn down. Hook shining across in the final chest. We find the best item in the game.
And he ethers it. That's, you know, this is one of those unusual circumstances where even though this is a tournament race, and this seed has really yanked these guys around all over the place, your final time doesn't matter. It's whether or not you can get the frustration out in a safe way.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, chauncyjay about to fight Agatu. Not to neglect POOBear. Agatu, the first attack he does will always be a guaranteed quote-unquote yellow orb, the ones that you can reflect back at him. But after that is a 50-50 chance of whether he will shoot a blue ball, which he just did. Very kind of him to showcase this live on stream here. I'm glad he's tuned into. But after that, again, 50-50. Until I believe the fourth attack, which will always be an orb. It's not like the Aga 1 fight, where it is, you know, guaranteed orb, and then 50-50 blue ball until the fifth attack, lightning cycle, and then repeat. But typically you look for a 3 cycle during that fight. And with that said, chauncyjay heading to Ganon, GrandPOOBear getting his flute.
Yeah, Pooh is officially in go mode. chauncyjay is going to start that. I'm a little bit concerned because Pooh is still only on Master Sword. As you were talking about earlier, that Master Sword is going to make Master Sword and Silverless is going to make for the most difficult possible Ganon fight. chauncyjay, just with that one sword upgrade that Pooh walked right by, I'm still slightly disappointed in that. But Tempered Sword is just so much nicer for Ganon.
Yeah, most certainly. Ganon facts present while we are to rise for the fight of Ganon. But 12 strikes in the first phase. This the phase where Ganon twirls his trident is phase 2. This phase takes 12 hits. chauncyjay using the cape in order to hit Ganon, but you have to be very careful. Those 2 torches do need to be lit during phase 4. You can go for a torch glitch, where if you're able to light the first torch before it goes out at the initiation of phase 4, it'll actually glitch the right torch to always stay lit. But either way, very tricky fight. GrandPOOBear having Master Sword will have an inherently much tougher and longer fight with Ganon. But the half magic does help to compensate the magic expenditure during that, you know, that phase that I previously mentioned. And chauncyjay bringing out all the stops on Ganon, has his B locked and loaded, ready for the final phase as we are entering it right here. This is phase 4 right here. The falling platforms are phase 3, and he does get the torch glitch.
Does get the torch glitch. You do notice Ganon will tell you where the silver arrows are once you enter phase 4. He said, "Did you find the silver arrows in my tower?" So somewhere in Ganon's tower are the silver arrows. If GrandPOOBear finds them, that'll help his time a little bit, but things are looking pretty safe for chauncyjay unless he gets a Ganon hug and falls down.
It would be very funny and unfortunate if the second last chest in the tower did have the silvers that chauncyjay opted to forego. But at this point, his lead is substantial. GrandPOOBear, making tracks through mire, but it's most certainly chauncyjay's fight to lose here. He's doing a very good job. Again, 12 spins with the Tempered Sword, but it would actually be 24 with the Master Sword, and that's where the magic expenditure comes into play.
Yeah, he's got a good rhythm here for his silverless Ganon fight. You can usually get about 2. I think if you time things just right, you can squeeze 3 spins in on Ganon, but
yeah,
2 is
that will be
good.
It right there. No, most certainly. The big thing is patience to keep your cool.
And GG chauncyjay going to go ahead and finish. Looks like he will enter the room right around 12:18:23, according to his timer, or 25. GG chauncyjay on the win. The windfish will wake soon. Hoot.
Yeah, it was very well done by him. Let's see if we can get him in here for an interview shortly. But in the meantime, enjoy GrandPOOBear going through mire. There is a small key here and a switch, so it does allow for some different routing and movement through the dungeon. It's not a room you see very often, but it certainly is a thing.
It certainly is a thing, and I think Pooh has mentioned that Misery Mire, he's not entirely familiar with Misery Mire. So this makes sense that he might have dipped up here and didn't necessarily intend to. Not going to say it cost him the race or anything at this point in time, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a great race by both. Very much entertaining. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I imagine once chauncyjay gets in, and here he is.
GG, sir. Well played. How are you?
I am not mad.
That is good.
I am not mad. That was quite a seed.
Sereno. We saw the bombs, Sereno.
Yes. That was the end of that was somewhat frustrating, but I still think the decisions that I made were fine, but not great.
We'll say this, what was your thought process when you pulled Pedestal? I think everyone in chat, everyone here in the commentary room was thinking, oh, this has got to be the flute, right? It has to be the flute. But then it had Quake. What was going through your mind then?
My first thought was, well, I hope Myers Quake. My next thought was, you actually had access to all of the pendant dungeons pretty early. You started off with Fire Rod, pretty early Dark World access, and then you got Flippers and Titan Mitts. So the pedestal being required was actually a thought that I had a long time ago. But when I didn't really get anything except Titan's Mitts from any of the pendant dungeons, I kind of stopped making it a priority. Especially because I didn't have any information that, it could be actually required. I was still finding items.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very fun to watch, and a kind of a curious post note here is that, so you got a lot of items that actually allowed you to get Burna, the King of Burna early, which would have opened up Spike Cave early, which would have opened up, desert and other areas a little bit early. And then, of course, finding the boots late. POOBear actually got the information early and got the boots too, but of course, just between everything that I see throughout you guys, it took a very different turn. I guess kind of what are your thoughts, still going through on the seed and how it went? It was quite the adventure.
Yeah, the Cane of Burna was in kind of a weird spot where it was kind of slow to go get, but it was something that I did keep in mind for Spike Cave being required. I tend to avoid locations that are a bit out of the way, like Spike Cave or Catfish, unless it's convenient for routing. And in that case, as you could see when I tilted off the face of the earth, because I couldn't kill Trinix with the Master Sword, that's when I was going to do it originally, and then I got frustrated and ended up leaving. So that also left Spike Cave wide open. I like to do that kind of all at once when I was doing Death Mountain, but that happened.
Yeah,
happened.
I do need to ask you about that Trinex fight. You know, you were kept on kind of hitting the wall there. At what point, you know, after the second or third death, you know, what was going through your mind about the time that you were going through, and what really made you leave and then come back later?
My thoughts were, so I knew that there was either going to be something on Trinex that would lead to Desert, that would lead to the Fairy Fountain in the Pyramid, or there's something on the pedestal. And I was comparing the time against bashing my head into a wall, essentially, at Trinex and going with that line, or pursuing the pedestal line. And I figured, like, well, I got nothing out of those dungeons earlier, and there could be something in Ice, especially something that was helpful for me to kill Trinex or something like that, and I could go pull the pedestal. That's a lot more locations than the 4 that I would get between Trinex, I guess 5, Trinex, the Fairy Fountain, and Desert. And it might give me access to more stuff along the way, like if I did find the boots or something like that. So after the 3rd time mirroring, I was like, all right, well, if I end up finding the flute, then I can come back with potions at the very least, or I could just go straight to the pedestal and hope that what I get is there.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a real quick point out, GrandPOOBear finishing up Vitreous there, using the Cane of Burnout. And again, you know, the Cane of Burnout and the half magic. Magic was never an issue during that fight for him, but the added leg is very apparent. The cape would not give that same leg, but the magic burn would be a little bit different too. So, you know, good fight from him to finish up Vitreous there. And actually, your opponent never got that Tempered Sword. He skipped a chest in Ice Palace, so he is currently on Master, which, you know, given the fact that silvers were not yet to be found, makes for a very scary Ganon Master Sword. You know, silverless Ganon. That's, you know, the way to do it.
Oh yeah, that's that'd be really rough. I hope he does end up finding silvers. They are somewhere in the tower, so maybe he goes a different path. Maybe he goes right side first and ends up finding them. And there should be another sword somewhere.
Yeah, that does bring up an interesting question. So you skipped the second last chest in the tower. Was that intentional?
That was intentional. I usually only get that chest when I end up needing the health from the fairies and anti-fairies, and I didn't really need anything else. My tempered silverless Ganon is pretty good, so I elected to not get it.
Fair enough. So it was kind of interesting because you get to get the other ones that are, I suppose, a little bit more immediate to get. But yeah, it was pretty interesting, again, with silvers not being on the table, but, you know, superstar you are, Tempered definitely can take out Ganon. Temper, I really think, is kind of the bar for most people. They really want Tempered for Ganon, silver or, you know, not. And so that completely makes sense. I can very much respect that.
Yeah, I would do Tempered Silverless Ganon or Master Sword with silvers. I would tend to open more chests if I didn't have... Like, if I was about to do Master Sword Silverless Ganon, either one of those saves enough time that I feel like it's worth checking a few extra chests.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, most certainly. You can get a 1 cycle on Phase 2 with Master Sword, but Phase 1 is pretty much always a guaranteed 3 to 4 cycle. You can gamble an extra cycle on Phase 1, which is much quicker than Phase 2, to hope for an RNG gamble to get a 1 phase, potential 1 phase, Phase 2, but either way, it's still much longer. And then 24 spins to 12. It is substantial. Checking the chest, I would agree with.
This is too many numbers. I thought video games were supposed to be fun.
Hey, I had a lot of fun doing this. Totally. It was so much fun.
No, I mean, this is one of those seeds that I think, I'm not going to say every runner dreams about never getting, but I think everyone needs one of these under their hat.
I was going to say, I've definitely dreamed of Rando, if that's where you're going with it.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of a Plando that one of my good friends, shoutouts to Recruit 37, made for me and my group of friends a while ago. That was Boots Last. Not quite in the same place, but it was oddly reminiscent.
For sure. And we always see GrandPOOBear, or POOBear, sorry, Canadian, in Gun Tower, gets the Gun Tower big key here. But checking a few more chests just to make sure, because, you know, again, better sword upgrade. But yeah, I'm not sure. Was there anything else you really could think of in regards to Siege, or you have to say? It's certainly very fun to watch for us.
Yeah, I think the routing in this seed is kind of rough because you had to get it. The ice rod would encourage you to go into Turtle Rock, but the bow was in Mimic Cave, so going into Turtle Rock without the ice rod is problematic, and going into Eastern without the bow is also problematic. So I chose the combination of Pod and Eastern. Pod was bow locked, unfortunately, but still got me the ice rod, which would have been efficient had I actually finished Turtle Rock at that point. But the seed overall wasn't really that bad. It was more the way I routed it was not conducive to it being good.
I mean, there are definitely some very good decisions, but that's part of learning, you know, just the more you do, the more that comes. And especially, again, being in a tournament, you get to watch your race alongside another to, you know, to try and compare the two. And I do agree with your decision to leave Turtle Rock. I think, you know, especially, you know, in terms of mental game too, it can be very mentally taxing to kind of bash your head against the wall, so to speak. But in that terms, you know, it's kind of like, okay, well, do I keep doing a couple of attempts, you know, hoping it works, and then if it doesn't, you're screwed? Or do you, you know, call it early and then just, you know, regroup, you know, come back later, you know, potentially with more resources to, you know, facilitate an easier fight as well?
Yeah, I would encourage anybody that is hitting a wall like that to go and do something else, at least temporarily. And like everybody saw after I got the Tempered Sword, my confidence improved drastically. I basically crushed the rest of the dungeons, and then went in and didn't even want to go to the safety hatch for Trinix the second time and just one-shot him. So
yeah, most certainly. And it was very apparent, you know, just going through and, you know, Vitreous and everything, just, you know, very confident. And that's the big thing. A lot of people kind of neglect the more mental aspect of racing, but it is very much a thing too.
Oh, absolutely.
So while we still have you, we have a little bit of time. Pooh is just now in Ganon's Tower on the Land Mollusk fight. What was, I mean, other than Trinix, because I know that was probably the most mentally taxing portion of the run, was there any point in time where you thought, I'm way behind or I'm way ahead, or what was your thought process here?
As I was approaching the pedestal, I thought that this was basically kind of the turning point. If there was something, if this was like Heart Piece or 20 rupees, I felt would feel very, very far behind, because obviously I spent all the time in those dungeons and got a total of Titan's Mitts, which is required, and a sword. I don't recall anything else in any of the dungeons. Not only that, but I double dipped 2 of them, which is even more time, even though it was semi-efficient the way I did it, I feel like. But it was still, like, that was kind of the turning point. When I got Quake, I was like, well, I guess we'll see once I get the flute. But that was kind of where everything was in limbo until I found the flute. And then once I found out Quake was required, I was kind of a sigh of relief. Like, okay, at least I didn't do all that for actual nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty funny, because you're thinking, is it the flute? Is it, you know, something like that? And it's like, wavy coin. Okay. What do I make of this?
I just go back up and be like, did that really just happen?
Yeah, exactly. Jiggle what? But yeah, just real quick, GrandPOOBear, you know, almost at the top of the tower here, finds a screw attack medallion. No use here in this seed. But that one long hallway in which he dashed through with the 4 guards there, he actually stood on the ideal pixel to dash from. sometimes when you dash, you can bonk into those enemies, and it'll cause you to fall off the bridge, and then the floor falls, and then, you know, it's just a very less fun time. But he was actually on the ideal spot. It won't mitigate the risk entirely, but the chance of bonking, or well, not bonking, but like clanking into one of those guards is greatly mitigated.
So Pooh is disappointing everyone and bypassed the same treasure chest that chauncyjay did. We won't know what's in that treasure chest. Ah!
Like, why are we even streaming? Like,
don't you know this is about us here, guys? Come on. No,
I know.
Really. It's about you.
We actually agreed to do that beforehand, so you know.
Yeah. And he too gets the final chest. And so, very, very tough fight coming ahead for GrandPOOBear. But get hyped!
Get hyped for his Aghanim fight. And by the way, GrandPOOBear, welcome to Randomizer. The most difficult fight in the game is your first match.
Yeah, just want to say thank you very much, Jay, for joining us here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say, but at this point, I think we're just kind of, you know, chilling, enjoying the show.
Oh, I mean, thank me for being here. Thank you guys for doing the restream. Thanks to everybody that makes this possible. You know, Fiesel with the restreaming, and you guys for doing the commentary, and then the tracker as well. So I know I've been a part of this before, and I know that it's a lot of work to put together. So really shout-outs to you guys as well.
Oh, well, thank you. It's you know, a bit of an honor and a great fun to come together. You know, each person kind of doing their little part. You know, it's all for the love of it. And so again, you know, thank you for racing and for joining. It can be very intimidating. I remember even now, every race I join, just terrible nerves. It's really difficult, but you know, great stuff. And thank you so much.
It was my pleasure.
All right, and GrandPOOBear starts the horrible. Oh, he's doing regular slashes. I don't know if he knows.
No,
he has to do spins.
Yeah, this is where the downshinsing come from. You go and learn today. This guy I'm going to give you some very interesting, you know, cephalopod and kind of information, but also, you know, learning about the fight. You need to do charge spins to get to that tempered sword level, and this is where it's a little bit difficult. And you know, you can see not taking damage, but you know, it can be a little bit hard to distinguish.
Yeah, I don't know if he realizes it's not taking damage. He might be thinking, "My God, what am I doing?" Oh, Pooh, this is, I mean, Master Sword Silverless Ganon. This really is the most difficult boss in the entire game. I said it for a reason. He's looking for options right now.
There is some soul searching going on. This RNG is the ideal RNG that you'd want for Phase 2 on Master Sword that Ganon just left. Because you can charge your sword, get into the corner, and then you'll get a double charge spin. This RNG is the troll RNG, where it's in the corner-ish, but you can't actually get into a situation where you could get the double. But yeah, it's very much a trial by fire fight right here.
The rudest seed to start out someone's randomizer tournament experience.
Oh, it's the best seed. Not seed? Like, that's what you want.
Personally, especially when I started doing randomizers, the best seeds were the ones that I never finished because I learned something.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it can seem, you know, really arduous or annoying to go through, but, you know, especially, you know, a player like GrandPOOBear, I'm sure he looks at this and he, you know, it's like, this is great learning. Like, this is really good. And he gets the charge spin. Hey, there you go. See? And now he'll forever have this under his tool belt. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's why I fell in love with Randomizer in the first place, is that I learned so much. Like, I remember doing seeds at the beginning in 4 or 5 hours and ended up getting it down to sub 2, and there were so many, like, learning about the bonk chest in Hookshot Cave, learning about...
That one's rude.
Yeah,
that one. I felt so bad for all the new players.
Yeah, Hookshot was in that chest the first time I did it. When I looked at the spoiler, and I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And then somebody ended up showing that you can bonk, first of all, and that you can specifically bonk to that chest.
Yeah, so I'd also like to give a shout out to our Rando developers, the ones that went through the logic and put everything together. It's a lot of work going through all the programming and everything, so definitely, huge shout outs to them for doing a lot of the footwork here. A lot of stuff that you just wouldn't really see by playing. But and to go over why the first chest in Hookshot Cave is in the logic, the logic writers for the game do take into account, like, it's not largely arbitrary decisions. There is a rhyme and reason, and in Ganon Tower you can bonk across one of the blocks to get to that safety fairy room in the tower, and because that's developer intended, that means using that technique is effectively developer intended, so it should be incorporated into it, and as such you can bonk to get into Mire without the hookshot, and you can bonk to get to that first chest.
Man, I was a little bit concerned. I was going to drop that knowledge bomb myself. I'm like, maybe I will sound as smart as Gazelle, and no. It's okay. You are clearly the knowledge champion here. I concede defeat to you, ma'am.
It's not a contest. I mean, I didn't know all this stuff once upon a time too, right? But it's all about getting the information out there. Like, I think commentary should really be about teaching the game to people and leading them on a journey as they go through. Just talking about the game is simple enough to do. People in chat do it all the time, and they often do a very lovely and humorous job of it too. But it's really about instructing and leading people, and so I've been very fortunate to learn from others, so I'd be remiss if I didn't try and share the information on myself.
Yeah, I think one of the best part about having this so prevalent in the live streaming scene is that the interaction with chat. Like, my favorite experiences when I'm playing Rando are when people are asking lots of questions, and hey, why did you do this? Hey, how does this work within the logic? Hey, what is a sequence break? Stuff like that. And being able to explain that and help the community grow that way, I think is really important. And everybody's been, like, every time I've asked a question, everybody's always been really nice about it. So the community's been really, really helpful with that too.
Yeah, most certainly. And I guess moving back over to GrandPOOBear, he has made it through the first 2 phases again, and he's currently on phase 3. He is getting to what is probably, the crux of the fight in phase 4. He is now entering phase 4, and if he does not get his torch glitch, he will have to maintain both torches throughout the fight. He does get the torch glitch. This will make 4 more consistent cycles for him. But now the difficult part is he has to do 24, not 12, 24 charge spins to Ganon. And he does have the knowledge for it, so this is very good for him. And again, the Fire Rod and the Half Magic, this is where magic plays a huge role. And he is low health too, so a lot of things coming together. Vatasia earlier mentioned that an iconic trick to Rando, and even just normal Zelda, is Ice Palace Bomb Jump. If you are playing Rando, the other more iconic linchpin kind of thing you need to learn is Silverless Ganon. It's not necessarily fun or comfortable, especially at the very end where there are pits all around, fire bats that seem to knock you across the screen, and a bunch of other things. But it is a very, decisive, impactful thing to learn. And GrandPOOBear has shown that he has learned it.
Yeah, he is doing this like a soldier. I mean, he is doing I believe he did learn NMG strats, so Silverless Ganon is certainly in his tool belt. Master Sword Silverless is going to be the roughest fight, but I'm glad to see that he's kind of in this spot. I might switch to Torch just to make sure he conserves his magic, but he also still has a blue potion. I think Pooh's going to get this.
Oh, he's going to get this. No problem whatsoever. Gonna body Ganon. The start of the fight, that was just the lack of knowledge.
Hey, and shout out to the dragon. Shout out to the Dragon Feeny, who is in chat, who really helped, for lack of a better term, train Pooh. She's crying tears of joy in chat. They grow up so fast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Just for my part, extending your hand, helping a friend. That's what it's all about. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so chat, give him your energy. He's very close to finishing Ganon here, so get a hype in chat. Just doing a great job of this fight.
he really, I mean, there are people in our community that have been doing Master Sword Silverless for a while who are probably not as consistent with Master Sword Silverless as Pooh is right now. He's doing an amazing job. Get your hype in chat. It's coming down to the wire. Pooh's going to do this, guys.
Yeah, I have not kept track myself, but he is obviously very close and in a very comfortable position. Showing the knowledge and everything, doing a great job.
He's got a very good rhythm going on now. He can get double spins going here.
He's certainly a lot better at this than I was when I started, and he's doing it very, very well.
Yeah, the scary thing in this is also very much the fire bats. When you take damage, it kind of reverses the direction you're holding. So especially as a new player, you might get hit by the fire bat, and your natural instinct is to go away from the scary pit, and then all of a sudden you're going towards the scary pit and don't understand why, and the fight can seem very strange. But GrandPOOBear, body scanning, explosions all over.
GG, GrandPOOBear. My goodness, that was a seed. And he did absolutely very well. And joining us now,
already in chat before he crosses the finish line. We'll get him in here for an interview. GrandPOOBear in here for an interview.
Sorry, my
What's
headphones
up?
are off.
It's okay.
Oh, sorry to make y'all wait so long. I got really lost.
So that was for your introduction to Randomizer Tournament. We gave you a pendant or pedestal required Master Sword Silverless cannon. How's that for your introduction to the tournament scene?
I mean, well, the good news is there was a lot of firsts there for me. That was my first pendant seed, and my first time ever beating. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I had no idea what to do in Ganon there for a second. Like, I had no idea that I wasn't doing damage, and then I realized, like, wait, maybe I need to spin for damage, and it was just.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh, it was that was a lot of firsts there for me, but it was fun. It was a really fun seed overall. Like, you know, once it was all said and done, I would say.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to rewatching just because of everything that was going on. It was a wonderful time, and you know, lots learned to be had. And of course, you know, showing that even in spite of that Master Sword thing, you know, that's just one of those little knowledge things. But then showing, you know, very good comfort with, you know, the silverless strategy on Ganon. So little knowledge things will definitely get in the way, but things like this are wonderful for trying to learn about that.
Yeah, that was huge for me learning wise. Like, I thought that was really fun. I mean, honestly, like when I was looking at 2 hours and I was like, man, I'm doing so bad. I'm so lost. And then there wasn't a dot done yet. So I felt a little bit better. I mean, obviously I got smoked by still about a half hour, but it was, you know, I got so lost. Like, and then I made like 2 really bad plays where I should have went to Turtle Rock when I was already up there, but I didn't press Cane in my own tracker. So for some reason I didn't think I could go there, and that was like that was a huge thing. And then when I went to Desert, I should have checked the statue there. Obviously, that would have saved me some time, or not the statue, the little book, whatever you call that thing. I don't know what you call anything.
Yeah, the tablet there, absolutely.
Yeah.
So one other thing that maybe could have saved you a little bit of time, and if you watch the replay, you're gonna maybe kick yourself. You walked right by a treasure chest in Ice Palace. That one treasure chest had the tempered sword for Chauncey.
Oh no!
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm sad that you missed that, but you did a great job with Master Sword Silverless. You definitely showed me up as far as that goes.
Wait, which one did I just walk by? I just like didn't get it. Like I just looked at it.
It was the one in the spike room where like you have to hit the switch and then.
Oh my gosh! I just spaced it. I just didn't grab it for some reason. That's hilarious.
Okay,
that's so funny.
Didn't need no temper. Got it. All good.
So funny.
Not a worry.
Oh, that's great. I can't. Well, that's actually a really funny, like, thing to have happened. You know, like, that's great. Oh, that makes me.
Again, I'm personally really looking forward to watching the vlog because it was a lot of fun, and I'm sure you two will have a lot of fun watching it over too. Just you know, a really great time.
Yeah, that was
Absolutely.
good. So Yeah, thanks
Yeah,
everyone for putting this on. This is like a super organized, incredible tournament, so it's really cool. And I'm happy to go on and keep going on and facing people more my speed as it goes on. So.
Well, I think the rough part is, Pooh, is we see your progress kind of as you're going. This is only what, your 7th, 8th, 9th seed?
Yeah, I think my seventh overall seed total. So yeah. Yeah,
you're going to eventually start crushing people, and it's going to be absolutely terrifying for those of us who are winless right now.
Yeah, that's my hope. Like, after I heard 5 and 2 is the record, so now I got to run off 5 wins to get in the brackets. That's my goal here this week. So put in a lot of work this week after this. I feel.
Yeah, crank that Eye of the Tiger, and just watch tapes.
Yeah, we're gonna need a montage.
hit the gym in Kakariko and maybe the bar too. And, next week got him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much. That was fun. That was really great. Can't wait to rewatch it.
Yeah, thank you. I guess just real quick, was there any other kind of noteworthy thing in the siege, or anything else you kind of wanted to mention? Maybe more specific to the race itself, but otherwise, if not, just any other kind of words you like to share.
No, only that I got lucky because I beat the boss in Ice Palace when I didn't need to, or thought I didn't need to, and then ended up actually needing to beat him. So I kind of got lucky on that, like missing that I had all the chests. So I feel good about that, I guess. So it could have been worse, I guess. It could have been a 3-hour seed for me.
Yeah, from a viewer perspective, it's a very hype gamble, and then of course it turning into a pedestal seed, but a giving medallion, just kind of putting off, the relevancy of it, just like a lot of twists and turns. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun. So, all right, well, thanks guys. Thanks Speed Gaming, as always.
All right, everyone. That was chauncyjay and the GrandPOOBear. If you like what you saw from these guys, go ahead and give them a follow here on Twitch. It's the easiest way to support them. There's still lots of rando going on tonight, isn't there?
Oh yeah, there's always lots of rando. Lots of rando. If there isn't rando, go make some rando. Go add lots of rando. Rando.
Yeah, we have, let me see, we're getting ready to hit the 7 o'clock hour. We have Ruble versus Kappa over on ALTTP Randomizer 3. That's about to start. And then 8 o'clock we have on ALTTP Randomizer 4. We have Ninban versus I Have No Name. That's going to be a great 8:30. Oh, I'm going to go watch this one at 8:30. Alucard versus Yukisaka on Speed Gaming 2 right here. And then also at 8:30, Carcat versus Feori on Speed Gaming 3.
Man,
we've got just so many awesome matches tonight.
Dang. That was fun. I don't know how to take it out of emote only. I have no idea how to go out of emote only.
I think we're going to go ahead and cut out because we have another match that we're going to set up here for directly. So any last thoughts?
I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, no, that was just a great experience, and as POOBear said, it's a well engined machine here, putting everything together. So for my part, thank you all, and especially thank you to my co-commentator. That was a lot of fun. And thank you to all the viewers and everything that put together, make it a fun experience. It's hard to get hype if no one's watching. If no one's watching, it's hard to commentate for it too. So everyone kind of has their role. And it's great fun. For my part, I've been Gazelle Chef, and I'm gonna head out.
All right, have a great rest of the evening, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the randomizer tournament for the night.
Bye.